And once again, it's Thomas de Gent sitting on the front for Lotto Soudal. And behind him is Seth Vermaat from the Lotto Agnel Jumbo team. And we've then got MTN Quebec also riding towards the front.
How the hell could he lead for a
could they be holding out
downhill
for Endel Bosenhagen today? Last time the race came here, that was in 2011, and it was Cadel Evans who won the stage ahead of Alberto Contador. Contador celebrated this if he had won. And the photo revealed a little later on that it was indeed Cadel Evans who went out the winner. Chateau de Caradeux is the building by the looks of it that the main peloton is just making their way past. They're a little bit further back down the road than the breakaway group of 4. And rider Hagedal, as always, sitting down towards the back, number 164 in the green colours. Speaking of green, that was the leader of the points classification that we saw just momentarily. And this the hotel in the centre of town, which was built in 1933, inspired by the town hall of Gouda in the Netherlands, town that we went through at the earlier part of this year's race. There is one rider in the peloton who knows what it's like to win at the Mer de Bretagne, and he is from MTN Quebec, and it's Reinhard Janzi van Rensburg, who was a winner of the stage in 2012 in the Tour of Brittany. The Chateau de Hack, which was initially the hunting residence of the Dukes of Brittany. The chateau was built in the 15th century. It has 6 turrets scattered throughout it. Director Sean Yates has said, Peter is not a sprinter. He's a lot more than that, Peter Sagan. I'm sure you'd agree. He's a lot more than just a sprinter. He certainly is going to be crucial to the hopes of Alberto Contador throughout this year's race. Here is Chris Froome. Having a chat to Richie Port. Froome and he's rooming. Unzu, the sports director for Movistar, the team of Nairo Quintana, has said that they've been really impressed with Chris Froome thus far, particularly on the Mer de Poix, which is a climb that doesn't usually suit his characteristics, and that he was very good across the cobblestones, particularly when you consider how that stage unfolded for Froome last year, and that it's been a fantastic first week for the Brits. He also added, the sports director from Movistar, that in other years we've seen a nervous Chris Froome. So far this year, we've seen a very calm one. And the deficit for Nairo Quintana is going to be difficult to make up. Quintana, one of the pre-race favourites, in 16th position, 1 minute and 56 seconds down. Perichon in his second breakaway of the race in the black and green colours. The team that hails from Brittany, the region that we raced through today. Roman Sika at the back of the group as they just coast along at 54 kilometres per hour. Number 196, this is Bizarski, 34-year-old Polish rider who's been close to a stage win in the Grand Tour previously. He was second on a stage at the Giro d'Italia behind Joaquim Rodriguez, one of the men considered amongst the favourites for today's stage. Last year, the man that got the nickname as the breakaway killer was Ji Cheng from the Giant squad, Giant Alpecin as they're now known, as he was closing down the breakaways to set stages up for Marcel Kittel. Perhaps this year's breakaway killer is Thomas de Gent in the red colours of Lotto Soudal. He has certainly spent a long time on the front across the past 2 stages. We're also seeing a rider from Lotto Agnel Jumbo riding towards the front. They're hoping for a strong performance today.
Everything this race.
Rob himself, he's
You
hoping
get
for a
15
top
minutes
10 finish
to complete the
overall by
race.
the end of the race.
before part 2 of the race starts, which is the uphill climb.
This
Now,
Chateau de Vermont,
I've done this downhill
dates
a few
back
times.
to the 15th century.
And kept a
It's listed
fairly
as a historical monument
show
since
reference.
1926.
It's always taken more than
Built
15
across 4
minutes.
levels.
So everybody will be starting part 2 of the race,
This is
the
very much the
uphill,
hotbed of
at
cycling as
different
well as
times.
we move into Brittany here. And earlier on in the day, we went through the hometown of a man who won the Tour de France on 3 occasions.
Maybe one or
And of
two
course,
people
Louison
who
Bouvet,
don't do this downhill
also
stage
the
1
hometown
race
of Frédéric
will
Guédon,
start the
who was a
climb on
winner of
time.
2 of the great one-day classics.
But anyone
Those
who's doing
classics
both
were, in
stages,
fact,
downhill and
Paris-Roubaix
uphill,
and Paris Tour. But this youngster
will
on the far side,
start the climb.
remember that name? Because this young man won
Within
2
about 10
very
minutes of each other.
impressive Pyrenean stages in the Vuelta a España a couple of seasons ago, and I have to say that this year he's riding on home turf because he is a Breton, and they're all very happy to be racing on home soil. 3 stages in Brittany. Yesterday's stage into Fougères was just inside in the region of Brittany. Today is throughout the whole of the day in Brittany, and tomorrow's team time trial is exactly the same as well. And it will be a testing team time trial because although it's not long as we have seen team time trials in the past, it's only a very short team time trial as the riders move away from Vannes to Plumelec. It's pretty tricky up towards the end because it's a slightly uphill finish, around about 1.5 kilometres up to the summit of the Côte de Cadoudal, as they call it here. And don't forget, you have to wait for the 5th rider to cross the line to stop the clock. So we're looking at the front end of the peloton now at 107 kilometres to go. Currently, most of the pacemaking being done by the one team, and it's Lotto Soudal, it's Thomas de Kent doing that pacemaking. I was just mentioning, I think the reason that they are looking to do the pacemaking is not necessarily for Andre Greipel today, because it's certainly not the sort of climb that I think Andre Greipel will survive. Maybe the other rider on their squad, and that of course is Tony Galopin, who in the past has won a stage of the Tour de France, and into the great rugby town of Ognax, and that's way down to the east of France. He also wore the yellow jersey as well in the Tour de France on that occasion. And I think today he's looked at this race route in his race Bible and put a little cross by the side and said, that's the one for me. And I think that's why we've seen this work being done by Lotto Soudal. But a lot of other riders will be queuing up thinking today is a very good chance for them to get a victory. And especially, I think, most of the top contenders overall will be looking at a win today.
So we're not too far away from the undulations now, Paul. Let's have a look
It's
at this.
more than 8
Well,
minutes.
local agriculture from the Côte d'Armor, which is the reason we're going to, our savoir-faire, our knowledge of how to cultivate things, and certainly if you talk about the France, well, there it is, it's all the way through this district. Although this is very much an agricultural region, it's also a big fishing region once we get over to the coast, and renowned, of course, for its oysters and mussels. It's like fishing, and that's what exactly the main field are doing currently. They've allowed the breakaway to go clear and get that advantage, and they're just letting them play before they reel them back in.
It's S5.
But you can actually see all the teams now starting to get themselves organised. They realise how important today is. And we talked before the start of the Tour de France of the Big Four, the Fantastic Four. Vincenzo Nibali, the defending champion, Chris Froome, a former winner 2 years ago. There he is in the yellow jersey. He inherited that yellow jersey yesterday after Tony Martin was unable to start yesterday's stage with a very nasty broken collarbone, which was operated successfully during the night of yesterday and yesterday morning, and he was in fact watching the race finish. The next little chateau, just not too far away, is in the town of Guitez, the Chateau of Cuillon. It was built during the reign of Charles VI between 1380 and 1420. And there is a stairway tower just over to one side there, which is 6 meters in diameter, and the stairs going down the middle are in a spiral staircase. And in 17th century, a lot of the dressed stones that led to a double flight stairway. It was quite damaged during the wars of religion that happened in France, and it was burnt and destroyed and ravaged by the Duke of Mercoeur before being renovated in the 16th century. Col Agnel, the rider at the back, is the most experienced rider in the breakaway. He's participated in the Tour de France on no less than 15 occasions. Unfortunately, this year he's actually not got any performances at all, really, to his credit. A man who last year won 7 races, including the National Time Trial Championships and a race in Poitou-Charentes and the Grand Prix of Plouay. This year, he has yet to open up his account. He was only 3rd in the National Time Trial Championships and 3rd in the National Road Race Championships. He was 36 years of age just before the start of the Tour. But certainly he'll be trying to look for a sponsor and a team placement for next year. This young man, though, Romain Sicard, back at the main field. There's a little bit of a mechanical incident here. That's Nicolas Edé, one of the riders, many of riders who've had an accident so far. You can see the bandages on his left shoulder there. Quick change, and back into the convoy of cars to try and get himself back up to the main field.
Here's the leaders. Marcel Seeberg is throwing off his bags. But we saw him ride away. He seemed to be very pernickety today, Thomas de Gent, riding away to check out what was in the bag by the look of it. This is the Chateau de Touche-Trépris. And Paul Sherwin, who is an absolute expert, Paul, what is the matter? Can tell us about it.
Well, of course, Phil, just looking at the way this is built, you know it was built around about the 16th century, but it was built by Christophe de la Roche, who was a knight of the Order of Saint-Michel, a deputy of the nobility of the Bishop of Saint-Brieuc. And in 1726, after a declaration which was written into a local document, it described the importance of the rights of the seigneur, or the directors.
Well, that was built as one unit, by the way, and it was built a long time before the French Revolution, and then it was transformed into a farm. Another fabulous piece of French architecture that abounds here in Brittany. Marcel Seeberg, they call him the town because he's so tall, sat in the middle there for Lotto. They're really very confident that they're going to try and guide their man, Tony Galopin, up to victory today.
Yeah, we'll talk about tall riders, Phil. There are 2 very tall riders in the Tour de France this year. The tallest rider is Marcel Seeberg. He measures in at 1 meter 98, and I did a quick calculation. That's 6 foot 7 inches. That's pretty tall, and 1 meter 97 is Johan van Someren. So we've got the tallest rider at the front of the main field, and the second tallest rider, he's sitting at the back of the peloton, but he's been involved in an accident in the first 3 days of the Tour de France, like many, many other of these riders.
Yeah, Johan van Someren is complaining about his pain still, but he's getting through day by day. These riders will be looking forward to the rest day on Monday. Of course, they'll ride the bicycles, but very slowly to keep loose, but they're hoping for that extra day off. Those with injuries, for example, yesterday Greg Henderson, one of only 2 New Zealand riders in the race, and Jack Barrow also has gone out with a crash. Greg had to, was unable to start yesterday. He's been riding the 3 days with a completely broken rib, and he simply couldn't breathe when the pace went on.
That's a difficult...
Super atmosphere. The race road is actually warning all the race at this very moment about the number of people on this climb to go carefully. This is the great thing about the Tour de France. It's free to watch. The barriers are unnecessary. The crowd is organised. The riders are heading up towards the top of the Mont Bel-Air.
Sometimes it's very important in the first part of the Tour de France just to get these single points, because if you can lead this competition, well, it gives you a lot of publicity for the team. But what a crowd in Brittany.
I'm not sure Sylvain Chavanel can get through here with the IAM on his jersey. He's going to let Sicard take it. Romain Sicard gets his first point in the King of the Mountains this year. Well, just now the peloton are on the climb. They're still timed at 2 minutes,
But maybe more importantly, that sign there, Phil, 10 kilometres to go to the sprint point. Well, the sprint point is for the rider who is the most consistent on every individual stage in the sprint. The man leading that competition gets a green jersey, and there he is, popping his head round there with a green helmet as well. He's a member of the Lotto Soudal team. Andre Greipel has won 2 stages of the Tour de France so far, and he leads that points competition by 12 points ahead of Peter Sagan. And it's going to be a big battle for the supremacy in that competition today. Sagan is just 24 years of age, and he's from Slovakia, and he leads the best young rider competition.
Well, the green jersey of Greipel, he's 12 points ahead of Peter Sagan. And because those others should reach the sprint point ahead of the bunch, there's only 11 points to be won from winning the sprint. So they're going to go head-to-head for sure.
As you come into the town of Mur de Bretagne on this occasion, you actually take a right-hand turn and go down a little bit further into the valley to make a longer climb up to the summit, making the climb around about 2.5 kilometers long. It drags up initially little bit of a false flat at an average gradient around about 4 or 5%. Then there's a very sharp 90-degree bend to get into the steepest part of the climb, and it's almost like a wall in front of you, and that's literally where it gets its name from, the Mur de Bretagne. But once they get over the summit, it actually flattens out a fraction for about 400 meters. There's John Degenkolb with the little moustache there in the black jersey. The sprinters now are moving up to the front because they know there's not very much more than about 5 kilometers there. So about 7 or 8 minutes before they get to the sprint point, there are 4 riders clear. There are points for the first 15 riders to go through that point. For the moment, Andre Greipel 99 points to Peter Sagan's 187 points, and Mark Cavendish is up into the third position. There's 20 points available for the first rider to cross the line, so the riders in the main field for 5th place will be sprinting for 11 points. This is a competition where you can get points on every day, but it's slightly weighted towards the sprinters with more points available on the flatter stages, although today is not deemed as a sprinter stage because it's an uphill finish.
So everyone, I've done my work.
75 kilometres to go. We've just popped through the little town of Col Agnel.
Couldn't shake off his under off my tail or
these
off
are
my
real
wheel.
typical Breton roads here. Soft
Both
birches
at the
on
same
either
time.
side. They're very forested.
I benefited from his draft as well.
A heavy road
So
surface
we
as
both
well.
work
It's
together.
the kind of surface that has a fair amount of tar on it with little
Strong
small
line, those
chippings
bolts.
on the top, so you don't get too
Which
good of
ultimately
a rolling resistance.
cost us up to the front.
As we look now at the leading group of 4, they are about, they've just come inside of 2 kilometres to go to the sprint point at the Gare de Montcontour. It gives them 20 points for the first rider to cross the line. None of these riders are really highly placed in the green jersey points competition, but there is €1,500 available for the first rider to cross the line, 1,000 for second and 500 for third. So for them it's a question of monetary award once they come up to this point, but in the main field there's a lot more interest at stake because the green jersey points competition is seeing a battle between the big sprinters. First, second, third and fourth in that competition are Greipel, Sagan, Cavendish and Degenkolb. Greipel is the leader currently with a 12-point advantage over Peter Sagan, but Peter Sagan is the winner of that competition for the last 3 years in a row. Go to the advantage of Peter Sagan. I wonder if he's had the chance to get some information filtered back to him. In this modern day field of cell phone communication, it's a lot easier for teams to get information back to the race.
Well, I reckon that the man on back here, Peter Shop, the local rider, will be putting his nose out front to try and win maximum points. Look at this now. This is Andre Greipel. He looks over his shoulder and straight into the eyes of Mark Cavendish, who won his 26th stage of the Tour de France yesterday, puts him 3 in the overall rankings of stage winners.
Yes, but the man who's had the most successful sprinting so far in the race is the man in the green jersey there, Andre Greipel. Coming up alongside him in the black and white jersey is his compatriot from Germany, John Degenkolb. The dark green jerseys over to the right-hand side, well, those will be the French favourites, and one man who's been close is Brian Coquard.
Little bit of move at the front here. It's Huzarski who's gone, and he's taken with him Perichon. Perichon will want it. The local boy flying the flag for Brittany. And he's going to get this one. He's got 100 metres. Huzarski, I don't know whether he can take him. He's going to have a go, I think. So he gets himself about $1,800, €1,500, but he's got it. More importantly, he's won in Brittany.
Bear in mind, these two teams are teams that came in as a wild card selection. They're not part of the Formula One. They're not part of Division One, the Super League. They are teams that got in there. And you can see that they're obviously very keen, Phil, to get themselves some money into their bank accounts. Now, this is Giant Alpecin. They are trying to lead this out for their man, John Degenkolb, who does like to sprint with a little hill in its place.
At 500 metres to go, it's all uphill to the line now. And Greipel knows that now. He's got Cavendish on his back wheel, but we have the beard and mustachioed John Degenkolb here. He's not in our picture. That's Kunde Kort coming through the moment. He's got Degenkolb on his back wheel. That's the lead out. Greipel's trying to chase Giant Degenkolb, and no sign of Peter Sagan or Mark Cavendish taking this one on. So if Greipel can get this, he might move a little bit more clear. He's going to have to take on John Degenkolb, but he's showing a fine speed there, Andre Greipel, on a difficult finish for him. He gets it.
Well, just have a look at that acceleration there. There's Peter Sagan in the white jersey. If Cavendish comes across fourth from the main field, Peter Sagan in that white jersey, fifth from the main field. But for a man who at the start of the Tour de France, Phil, in that green jersey, Andre Greipel said, well, I'm not interested in the green jersey points competition. I think he's changed his views.
He's got to pay for that green bike they built for him 6 days ago. He's now going to lead this competition possibly for 7 days by the end of this day. So well done to Andre Greipel. He's looking to keep that lead as long as he possibly can. He'll have huge problems next week in the Pyrenees.
Federico, as I say, see the red, white and blue bands around his armour? He's allowed to wear those as a former French national champion. I don't think this breakaway will survive, but it was just a little move by Peric Federico. I thought, well, let's just have a crack here. There's an opening happens, but the fact is that there are too many riders in there, but the French riders have seen this as an opportunity. Pierre Roland. Roland has lost quite a bit of time as well in this race, because he's one of the riders who had come to this race and banked everything on riding well, but so far he's lost a huge chunk of time. He's more than 10 minutes behind overall. And in the main field, not a surprise really to see Team Sky coming to the front and say, right,
no choice.
Let's nail this back and just come back to a good old status quo.
They were given an armchair thanks to the hard-working Lotto Soudal team, who were rewarded with that best of the rest victory by Andre Greipel, but now they've got no reason to work at the front. They've dropped off, the breakaway has split the field, and it's going to force Sky to chase at a time when they really didn't want to throw too much energy away. And this immediately, you see, they swallowed up the breakaway because of the reaction. The world champion has come through looking very sharp now, Michael Kwiatkowski. That little flick of the elbow, Lars Bohm is coming through, is to say, come and give us a hand. There's a gap here.
Well, this is one of those situations when, you know, you've always got to be attentive. They allowed, just because of the sprint point going through there at Montcontour, a little bit of a gap to form. The sprinters were saying, well, oh, what's going to happen here? We better stay in contact. As they look over their shoulders, the fact that the neutral service car is in there behind them is an indication, well, I was going to say an indication of a 30-second gap, but, you know, Sky have all of a sudden said, right, let's nail it all back. And you can see also coming forward the Cannondale Garmin squad. Lotto Soudal, they're not too worried, but now you can see a lot of group are very, very keen to sort it all out.
They can't allow this one to go. There are some riders here that they might have trouble getting rid of over the next 10 days of cycling, so they're going to keep an eye on them. This is a very, very good opportunistic move to test the waters, and they swept up that breakaway. I would think ahead of the planned schedule, but they've got them, and now they're racing. Gap is at 23. It's up to Sky to chase it down.
Well, I know Race Radio is getting very excited about all of this, and now we've got this gap at 23 seconds. That's around about 400. It's mainly the sprinters in that leading group, and what a coup that would be for the books if all of a sudden the sprinters were able to get into a large breakaway situation just like this.
Well, this is going to ensure a very fast last 67 kilometres if they can keep these pressures on here. Everybody checking out Kwiatkowski also wants people to help him here.
Well, the problem is, Phil, this is too big a group, so you're not getting that much cohesion. That was Sylvain Chabanel looking up, saying, come on guys, let's get ourselves organised. But when you get a big group like that, a lot of guys think, oh, this is quite nice. Christmas has come early this year. I'll get a free ride to the finish.
But you see the roads now, they're undulating all of the time, and here in Brittany they're often dead straight and they're just roller coasters, and that includes the finishing climb. You turn onto it 2 kilometres out and you see it straight ahead of you going into the distance. It's a very difficult road to judge your effort on. There's still riders willing to try and establish a move here right now, as they continue to pile on the pressure.
Well, a little bit further back, you can see that the group that contains most of the sprinters, they've spread across the road, and people are realising, oh, I might have missed the move here, I might have missed the splits, and they're starting to collaborate and try and pull it all back together. It's going to be a little bit difficult for the next 5 or 10 kilometres, but in the main field, well, there is the main field, it's never 30 seconds, I have to tell you that.
I don't know, it's on a hill here, and they're stretching it for sure.
The lime green jersey, not seen a lot of those taking responsibility for pace making so far, and that's I think because they really do believe that they've got a chance of a stage victory today, and that falls onto the shoulders of Dan Martin. So these 3 riders who've managed to get themselves into the breakaway, that's Bartosz Uzdalski on the front, a good time trialist, good man to have in a breakaway group like this, joined by Michel Golas. Golas is the rider just on the far side from Quick Step. The Quick Step rider is Polish rider. In the middle, sandwiched in the middle, Lars back in the red and white jersey. And there is a little bit of a wave over on the right-hand side. Huge crowds are turning out here, always big crowds when the race comes into Brittany. And just looking down at the peloton, they're certainly not hanging around this afternoon. We're coming up to 4:10 in the afternoon, French time. A gap between the leading group of 3 riders and the peloton, who are boring along here at about 50 kilometres now, is now up to 52 seconds. All of the main contenders in that group that we're looking at. But I think today they'll be thinking about a little bit of a showdown. I think they would like to have a sort out. So the last time the race came up here for the finish was when Cadel Evans got himself the victory. Mur de Bretagne, turn down towards the right, you go slightly downhill for a kilometre or so, and then with 3 kilometres to go, you take a very sharp hairpin bend to the left, and then you start up a wide boulevard. That's where the riders will try to position themselves, and then it's a 90-degree right-hand bend. You've got to be in the right position and in the right gearing as well when you make that right-hand bend, because all of a sudden, straight in front of you is the wall, le mur, the Mur de Bretagne. And could also be a nice little tryout for the riders in the dark blue and green jerseys, of course, of Team Movistar, because Nairo Quintana, he was involved in that accident with Tony Martin. The funny thing is, when you go back to that accident with Tony Martin, you had Tony Martin went down, Nibali, TJ Van Garderen and Nairo Quintana. The man who just missed out, in fact, he was bumped into, was Chris Froome, but he just managed to get his body around the falling bike of Vincenzo Nibali, and he stayed upright on that occasion. Nibali said nothing to worry about, it was mainly superficial, they're all playing it down. Van Garderen seemed to me to have the easiest landing in that crash, because he landed on top of everybody else, but in fact Nairo Quintana did get a chain ring into his forearm, but that's well bandaged up and he's had a couple of days to get over it. Well, the gap's hovering at the 1 minute margin, at 51 kilometres to go to the finish. That's, these speeds are only going to take them, I would say, about an hour and 10 minutes. They've struggled to stretch that out from 30 seconds that it was a little while back to the 1 minute margin, but there is some firepower in this leading group. Lars Bak, who's been a professional since 2002, he also has been a very well decorated time trial champion of Denmark. Beautiful roundabout, highly decorated for the arrival. The arrivée, 52 kilometres, finish in 52 kilometres. But that's for the main field. My guess is that the leaders have got inside of 51 kilometres to go to the finish. Cannondale Garmin, sad for them, they're a man down. They've lost their Kiwi rider who went out with a very nasty accident on the 5th day of the race. He crashed and had to abandon. Andrew Talansky is their hope for a high place in the overall standings. They got three-pronged attack really, Ryder Hazerdal, but the way Hazerdal is riding here, I think he's actually sacrificing his hopes of a high finish in the overall standing, and Hazerdal leaving a lot of energy on the road, so that would make you think that it's all for Dan Martin today.
I'm absolutely certain it is, Paul. You're absolutely right, and Martin is up for this today. And if he can get his team to reel in these three, they're causing a little bit of concern. We're only just 50 kilometres from the finish, just around 30 miles in Ludiac at the moment. Ooh, I'm glad our camera went the right way there. That was the long way round for the other two.
Well, funny that they made that error, because strangely enough, if you get a chance to drive the Tour de France race route, there are actually arrows. There's a board just before you come into a roundabout like that, which suggests which is the best way to go around. And obviously, the two at the back here, well, they weren't looking at the board, and Hutzarski got the best line and got himself, as you can see, 5 or 6 seconds advantage going around the corner, but he will wait for these guys. There's the little board I was just telling you about.
Well, this is Ludiac, Paul. This is the linguistic border here, which separates the regions where Breton was spoken to the west and Gallo to the east.
Well, it's an amazing country, and I've just been looking up the Breton flag, and it's a flag that I thought had been around for many, many years, but in fact it was only introduced in around about the 1930s. And there are 5 black bands on the Breton flag for Lower Brittany and 4 white bands for Upper Brittany. And that's how they decided to bring the Breton flag, and it has certainly been very, very much adopted by Lower and Upper Italy. And there's always a big discussion about whether or not Nantes is in Brittany. Well, as far as the Nantais believe, it very much is part of Brittany.
Is he still part of Brittany? You saw the peloton there hitting that same roundabout and spreading both sides as well, but we've wandered off to give you a closer look at the St. Nicholas Church here in the centre of Ludiac. They'd begun to build this in 1758, and they managed to finish it 7 years later. Back to the action. 106. The peloton look as though they're still dodging roundabouts, but they're all about holding it together. It's all about Cannondale Garmin. The yellow flag is up, warning the riders of the roundabout, because yellow is danger in Europe, by the way, not red.
Quick glimpse there, Sammy Sanchez. Amazing to see the rider at the back there with all of the bottles in the red and black jersey. Sammy Sanchez, he's doing a lot of work for the Team BMC. Olympic champion in 2008. Obviously, BMC, I think they've got a lot of faith in their man, TJ Van Garderen. Before this race, we've talked a lot about the Criterium de Dauphiné. There are 2 big races, 2 big indicator races that we look at before the start of the Tour de France. One is the Tour of Switzerland. The other one is the Criterium de Dauphiné, and in fact, TJ Van Garderen was leading that race up until 3 kilometres to go to the finish, and the only man who was able to drop him, the last man standing on that occasion, was Chris Froome. Froome attacked him inside of 2 kilometres to go and put just a few seconds between himself and TJ Van Garderen, and that gave Froome the lead over Van Garderen. But everybody now believing that Van Garderen is the dark horse. But no dark horses at all for Cannondale Garmin. They are obviously very, very keen. Again, you've got to be so attentive. Just look at that little bit of a traffic separator there as we cross over the railway line. Looking through the race handbook, interested to see how they've translated the level crossings into English from the French. It's called a cross level, and that one that they went through there was cross level number 46. A minute 12, so the 3 riders at the front are doing a pretty epic job of stretching out their advantage. They're strong riders, and they could create a little bit of a surprise on today's stage. We mentioned earlier the rider in that group, Hutzarski. He's a former time trial champion of Poland. Lars Bak has been a multiple time trial champion of Denmark. Golas is second in the road racing championships of Poland this year, so there's lots of firepower. And it's going to be a long, hard chase. And having announced the colour, now everybody's leaving the responsibility of the chase right the way up to Team Cannondale. There you see, that's why you've got to be so attentive on any stage of the Tour de France. That's why you really don't want to sit at the back, because if you're not paying attention and you have to go through a little chicane like that, and all of a sudden you've got a boulevard right in front of you. Sky, you can see in the black and blue jerseys, they're quite happy sitting in the second row, allowing this other team, and obviously very, very keen now are Team Cannondale Garmin to get the victory. And there's the race course, by the way, just on the far side. A very good chance to see that. That's a Calouette race course just outside the Bludiac. It's known for its trotting races. We have a lot of trotting races here. The races have existed since 1879 and has developed not too far away a thoroughbred breeding centre. Stands hold 5,000 people, and there you get a chance to see the Fête de Cheval, the Festival of Horses, on the 9th of August. And the agricultural fair is in the 12th of September. So if you're in this region, take a pop down and have a quick look at this. The track, by the way, is 1.2 kilometres around, a grass track with a 340-metre finishing straight, 18 metres wide. Back to the leading group. Lars Bach in the red jersey, Lotto Soudal, Michel Golas, Ethics Quick-Step in the blue and black jersey. In second position, Bartosz Rudzacki. He's been in the lead of this race since the 6th kilometre. He was one of the first two riders to go out on the attack after 6 kilometres with Sylvain Chavanel, and he certainly is still generating an awful lot of firepower.
Well, this is going to hurt the peloton. I don't think they're entirely expecting to have to chase from just over half distance at this stage. Left 73 seconds. They're still gaining. Nobody helping Cannondale. Yes, they want Dan Martin to win, but they could do with a few more workhorses in the engine room, I think, as they fan out.
That's always a problem, Phil, when you put the full team on the front, then all of a sudden you're committed, and you find that you don't have too many mates in the main field, so they've all of a sudden, everyone said, right, well, obviously, Dan Martin's going for the victory today. Cannondale have put it all on the line, but we'll leave it up to set them and see how much firepower they've got.
Just looking under the saddle here, this is the little, I don't know what you call it really, but it collects the data which gives us information on the riders, and every rider has one under his saddle. A sending unit, I suppose, or a transponder.
I believe the term is a telemetric transponder.
Telemetric transponder, oh, I must use one of those when I go looking for my lost rhinoceros in Africa.
And I did check, it does weigh in at 80 grams, and it sends lots of information of the rider's GPS location, and if you can have a quick look around the internet, you'll find how to log into the information of every individual rider. You can pick your own favourite riders and see where they are in the main field, see how fast they cover certain points of the course, and see the sort of speeds that they're attaining. And they actually sent back a little piece of interesting information today. In fact, that the average rider, when he went through the feeding station, slowed down 20 kilometres an hour to take on board his bag.
I could have told them that by looking at the pictures. That was Gregory Rast there, number 148, the former top Swiss rider, is the top Swiss rider. He is on the Trek team. As he continues, they're doing 65 kilometres an hour right now. It's about 42 miles an hour.
It's all up to one team now, and it puts a lot of pressure onto a rider like Dan Martin when you see the whole of the team coming to the front, because you know that the reason they're doing this is it's for you. It's you now who takes up the responsibility to finish off the work that's been done by your teammates, and that's what Dan Martin's going to hope they'll be able to do on today's stage. Nathan Haas is the rider on the front. Queuing up behind all these riders, though, as we get a little closer to the finish, we'll start to see the teams of the overall contenders. Astana for Nibali, Sky for Chris Froome, BMC Racing for TJ Van Garderen, Tinkoff Saxo for Contador, and of course Movistar, who so far for me have been an exceptionally good team over the flat stages, which in the past has not been the case, because in the past Movistar have been a great team for the mountains, angling their team and making it solidly built just for the mountain stages. But here, they've probably got the best balanced team they've put in the Tour de France. Well, looking now at the Breton flag, which is flying quite high over on the right-hand side. And that is because we're right in the heart of Brittany. The whole of today's stage is in the Breton region of France. Number 71
Sitting in the back of the group, he's trying to conserve as much energy as possible. This is the leader today, I think, of Lotto Soudal. That's Tony Galopin. On a stage last year in the Tour de France, he wore the overall leader's jersey. And as you can see, the big wind turbines in the background. This is what the race route has looked like so far. The red spot we went through was the King of the Mountains point at Col du Mont Bel-Air. And the green triangle was the Gare de Mont Contour, and that was the intermediate sprint point where the first rider to go through there was Romain Sicard. And these three riders, in fact, after the sprint points, the race actually had a group of almost 25 riders going through. It split up, came back together again, and then finally these three were able to establish a lead away from that group, as the main group containing guys like Mark Cavendish, Peter Sagan and Warren Barguil were brought back into the peloton. But over the last few kilometres, they prized up to a maximum advantage of 1 minute and 15 seconds. But at 40 kilometres to go now, it started to tumble. It's down to 1 minute and 9 seconds, with a lot of teams now starting to take a little bit of interest in what a great chance to do some beautiful painting at the side of the road. Looking around the Breton countryside, we have just exited for the leaders at the small town of Saint-Maudant, which is in the Morbihan department. Morbihan is the name taken from the Breton name of the small sea, after the Morbihan Bay, which is not too far away from here. Sitting in the back there, Daniel Tekle-Heimenot. He is causing quite a rage back in Eritrea. He's the leader of the King of the Mountains competition. And he hails from Asmera, which is on the slopes of the Great Rift Valley.
Etix Quickstep, the winner of the last 2 days of racing, and during that time they've also lost the leader of the touring, Tony Martin, who's watching these pictures from his hospital bed in Hamburg, where his shoulder has been operated on, and now it's curtains for these two. They know what's coming, and there's a large peloton joining them right now.
You see the flag there of the Brittany flag up there in the black and white, just from the left-hand side of the screen, the right-hand shoulder of the riders, and all of a sudden the road widens out a fraction here. This is the main road heading into the town of Mur de Bretagne. When they get to another 3 kilometres, they will take a nasty little right-hand corner into a much narrower road. The road will be half the distance of this, and that's when everybody will be fighting for position. BMC Racing are coming to the front now for 2 things: to look after TJ Van Garderen, who starts the day in 3rd place in the overall standings, but also for their Belgian rider, Greg van Avermaet, who is a very, very good finisher, and he's dreaming about winning the stage today. Seconds off the overall lead, and putting this all into perspective, the man who was doing that long turn at the front for the BMC Racing team is the guy who won the first opening stage of the Tour de France, Rowan Dennis. This is an extremely powerful team, and funnily enough, TJ Van Garderen, Phil, has had to ride a little bit under the radar. We've talked about the big names, Alberto Contador, Vincenzo Nibali, and all of the others, but Van Garderen is well up in the overall standings and hasn't so far put a wheel mark wrong. And yes, I agree with you, tomorrow night he could be in the yellow jersey at the end of the Team Tatra. Here's the right-hand bend I was telling you about inside of the Mur de Bretagne. You could go straight on there if you wanted to, straight to the top of the climb, but the race organizer taking them over towards the right, down to the bottom, and that makes this final climb of the day, I think, just a little bit longer.
And Andre Greipel said, I've done all I can for the guys today. He's not going to be scoring points for Green tonight, as he lets the race go away from him. So we made the right turn in the village. We are 6 kilometres now away. We'll go downhill, very fast downhill, and then it's all the brakes before we turn sharp up in left, retrace down a main highway, and then we make a dead right-hand turn, and there is the wall.
But unfortunately, before that, at 4.5 kilometres to go, there's a hairpin left-hand bend off this small little neighbourhood road onto the main highway as they turn left to start the ascent up to the climb. And I think that from that 4.5 kilometres to go to the sharp 90-degree bend is where we're going to start to see riders taking risks to position themselves, because I think you've got to go around that corner to the start of the Mur de Bretagne in the first 10 positions, because it's a 90-degree bend and the road goes to half the size that it currently is.
See the pressure at the end of the peloton now. It's the tail, and at the front is the main contenders here. Riders who've done their job to try and keep their leaders at the head of that race are now dropping off. Their job is done for the day. They need to recover for tomorrow. Chris Froome in yellow, in a safe place, trying to keep an eye on TJ Van Garderen.
Well, that rear shot we got of the main field just gives you an indication of the speed that these guys are currently doing. They're doing up close to 40 miles an hour going down here. Here's the little left-hand bend I was telling you about just a few moments ago.
This is the hairpin onto the highway. They're taking it wide and fast, but they're all coming round safely. Let's hope so. This is crucial now. This is a beautiful road that takes them to the dead turn onto the climb, but it's a couple of kilometres away. They're all reassessing where each other are.
Well, that's what they're looking for. That's why the rider on the front looks over his shoulder. Where's TJ Van Garderen? Well, there he is in about third position. He's got a teammate up alongside him. TJ Van Garderen today, although he's high in the overall standings, I think he will try and sacrifice his own chances of a stage placing to try and get his teammate Greg Van Avermaet a victory. They realise that the Belgian on their squad has got a very good turn of speed when it comes to the top of a short, steep climb like this one.
4 kilometres to go as we go under, and Contador's team now, Tinkoff Saxo, have also come to the front of the race. The peloton is thinning out now as the strong men with ambition are getting their noses up to the head of the race.
Australian Michael Rogers is the rider, grimacing on the front, as we can see. Look at the way he's puffing and breathing there to get as much oxygen into those lungs as possible. He knows, he studied the race book last night, he knows he's got to keep the pressure nice and high to stop his team leader getting swamped behind, because there's a lot of riders who will try and come around the outside to position themselves for this climb. We've also got Orica Greenedge moving up to the front, and I wonder just how Michael Matthews is. Michael Matthews is the rider who's got the ability to win a stage like this, but he had so much bad luck on the opening days. Like many other riders in the Tour de France, he's pretty much bandaged and stuck together.
Road end to road end at the moment. The Cannondale Garmin team who tried to control this race have been blown away, but Dan Martin is still in the middle there, and he's going to try and take advantage of the infighting from the other teams now. 3 kilometres to go. We make the turn at the 2 kilometre banner, and they are racing to hold pole position before they turn dead right, 90 degrees.
Geraint Thomas is the rider from Sky behind Chris Froome. Look at him rocking and rolling on his bike. Richie Porte came forward a little bit over to the left-hand side there. He hails from Tasmania. His job today to try and make sure that Chris Froome in the yellow jersey gets around that corner in a safe position. They're not very much more now than 30 seconds away from the right-hand. It's a 90-degree bend, Phil, and I think the scary thing is all of a sudden the gradient changes dramatically from 3 or 4% to 10%.
Yes, and you see it, it's dead straight. Yeah, no hiding from this one, and they'll see the crowd too on both sides of the road waiting to welcome the riders on. Because from this point onwards to the finish, everybody had to walk. No cars were allowed. They're repositioning now. Froome again has put himself 7th or 8th rider up there. Quintana is up there, Contador is up there. The big men are going to have to go for this one. Wait for the turn, it's at the 2 kilometre sign. That bunch has gone from about 180 strong to about 45 making the turn. As they come up towards the line now, right on the front of the race here.
Peter Sagan in the white jersey.
Oh, so he's gone wide.
He's gone a little bit wide. His job done for the day. He's just getting himself safely around the corner. That was Johan van Someren. Now, if you want to know why it's called a Muur, you got an idea there. By the way, I think award for the best beard in the race goes to Geoffroy Soupé there from Cofidis. He's on the front in the red jersey. But man, what a great ride by Froome. He's up there into 2nd position in the yellow jersey.
He's perfectly positioned by Team Sky into that position, and behind him in 3rd place is Geraint Thomas. Peter Sagan, watch out, he's the pure white jersey tucked in with that yellow crash helmet on.
Also with the Norwegian flag on his shoulder there is Edvald Bosenhagen. He rides for MTN Quebec. You've got Giant Alpecin in the black jerseys with the white stripes down the midden. They are looking for their man, Warren Barguil. He's a youngster. He's just 24 years of age, and he's 10th overall. And he is, of course, let's not forget, a Frenchman from Brittany.
Yes, and Simon Geschke's looking to help him as he looks across to see where Warren is. He's right there. The French could do with a stage win. They haven't had anything so far in this year's Tour de France. Everybody just waiting. This is a long climb, 1.5 kilometres. It continues.
Well, everyone's now starting to make the move. You can still see the white jersey waiting, biding his time. He's not been dislodged from the front end of this bike race this afternoon, and that, of course, is Peter Sagan.
Well, it's the Bora Argon team, and Kwiatkowski's blown, the world champion, not quite on his top of his form yet. He's got sat up and gone off the back. As they start to come through again now, sure, and it looks as though they're trying here for Oregon Green Edge. Well, this is one of the Yates brothers.
Well, you can see all of the struggling happening behind now. These riders will remember this climb from a couple of years ago. Barguil is not too far away. I'm looking back to see if I can spot where there are not Contadors there. Daniel Tekla-Heimer, not his job done for the day. He now is just trying to survive up to the top of this climb.
Well, this is one of the attacks here. It's Adam Yates, the identical twin of Simon, who's got himself onto the front. Christophe Riblon, I think it is here, who's trying to pile on the pressure.
Well, Froome is taking up
in second place.
Froome is taking up the chase behind. He's got no teammates up alongside him. He's got Joaquim Rodriguez behind him in second position. Behind him in the white jersey is Peter Sagan, running out of teammates this afternoon.
So the men that are thinking long-term to Paris and are fighting for seconds here, Chris Froome is in the hot seat. Geschke is the rider on the right, but it's Froome that closed down the gap. And what about Peter Sagan, who sits second overall in this race in that white jersey? He's right there at the moment.
Well, now you can see, look at the acceleration of Froome. He's wiped away those accelerations now. Right up into third, fourth position is Peter Sagan. Sagan now, I think, to you, Phil, is going to be the most dangerous rider. He's not been put any distance at all between himself and the car. Oh, an acceleration!
Well, it's an acceleration. It's gone from by AG2R here, who's launched the attack, and it doesn't. I'm not sure whether it isn't Romain Bardet who's put the move in here from Team A. And what's happened here? There's trouble here for last year's defending champion Vincenzo Nibali. He's losing time there. He is dangling off the back. Now the attack from Dan Martin. Dan Martin, who's trying to make a long run to the finish after all of the hard work of his team, has winded it up. He's got away. He's got one rider to catch. This is Villemoroz, who's gone at the front. He's surprised with his third place finish on the Mer de Huy, and he's now making his run for the finish. Can Dan Martin reach him? Sagan looks over his shoulder, no reaction from the field.
Well, he's looking over his shoulder to see if somebody's going to help him. They can't respond to this move at all by AG2R. This was a man who was very aggressive on the slopes up to the Mer de Huy. Dan Martin is trying to come across the gap, but at this point in the race, Phil, he's not going to close it down.
Alex Villemoroz wins the day. He slipped away, the former mountain biker, and Dan Martin, annoyed with himself, comes over in second place. Alejandro Valverde gets third, and Sagan in amongst the places again, but the win still eludes him. Well, the time is counting. Vincenzo Nibali is coming in, and with Andrew Talansky there, they lose about 4 or 5 seconds, I would think.
Well, a few time bonuses lost there for Vincenzo Nibali, and I wonder what he's going to think about that. The short, steep climb put pay to his chances of trying to get the psychological advantage on a day like today. Well, the hill was a sprint in the end, but this man, in his first tour, blew them all away. Well, he certainly did. A great move by him. He was well placed on the stage up to the summit of the Mer de Huy, and a man here who a couple of years ago, by the way, did not have a contract. He was given a chance to come back and ride for AG2R, a former mountain biker as well. He had a silver medal in the under-23 World Championships in mountain bike a couple of years ago, and he was second, and Peter Sagan was fourth. And obviously the team management putting a lot of faith into him. Dan Martin, the team rode their hearts out for the Cannondale Garmin rider this afternoon, but he got caught out by that attack. And of course, Alejandro Valverde showing that he's quite ready for the challenge as well. Here's confirmation then. Villemoroz of AG2R wins by 5 seconds ahead of Dan Martin and Alejandro Valverde at 10. Have to wait for a moment to see what it does to the overall standings, and most of the overall contenders given the same time. Adam Yates in 7th place, Chris Froome 8th, Bauke Mollema in 9th, TJ Van Garderen in 10th. But certainly what a great move by AG2R, and this team always seems to come up with the goods when it comes to the Tour de France.
Expensive paint job on the house for the King of the Mountains colours for 2015, but Alexis Villemoroz has landed a great victory for France, their first stage win of this year's race as well. And Team AG2R, well, good for them. And a nice sprint too by Alejandro Valverde, cleaning up from the rest there with a good result there.
Greg Van Avermaet dreamed about this. He managed to come across the line in 6th, just a 1 position behind Tony Galopin. But the man who will be asking a few questions tonight, I think, Phil, would have to be Vincenzo Nibali, who did not like the violence of that climb.
It was a shoulder-to-shoulder battle for, and he did lose time. Little bit, okay, 5 seconds, but it sends messages to the rest of the race. Chris Froome said before the start, look, we're not going to lose more than a couple of seconds. He wasn't overly worried about it, but if you gained a couple of seconds, I think you'd be pretty happy. But the big one overall then, Peter Sagan at 11 seconds. He stays the same. Van Garderen stays at 13. Tony Galopin is 4th, and Avermaet is 5th. Contador is 7th. No change in the running order here as we go down towards the team time trial tomorrow and the first rest day of this event on Monday. Chris Froome, he finished alongside one of the Yateses on the line, but he was happy enough, I think, just conserving his lead, and they've gained a bonus.
Yes,
Nibali's lost time.
Yeah, but I think the interesting thing, Phil, is you can take that whole number of riders, throw them up in the air, and they will come down in a completely different position tomorrow, because tomorrow's team time trial. Fundraising for heart disease being conducted before the riders take to the course, and some of the stars of French cycling, some of the retired stars of French cycling have been up amongst them. Orica Green Edge, they are the first team to start, which is quite a surprise. It's a team that's had a disappointing tour so far, with 3 riders having crashed out and another one of their significant men, Michael Matthews, seriously injured. Normally Orica Green Edge they would be one of the contenders for a team time trial, but today it's a question of survival. This is Michael Matthews at the back of the group. He's got less bandages on, at least less bandages that we can see on today. They're possibly covered up underneath the long arms of his skin suit. Orica Green Edge, they did win the team time trial in 2013 on an extremely fast course around Nice, where it was enough to move Simon Gerrans into the yellow jersey. They also won this year at the Giro d'Italia to take the Maglia Rosa, the pink jersey, where we saw Simon Gerrans have a stint in pink. So too Michael Matthews, who's here wearing number 105. Simon Clark also had a brief stint in the pink jersey. The first win in Europe for the Orica Green Edge team, that was a team time trial at Torino Adriatico in their first season. So it's a discipline that they've got great pride in, particularly given that a lot of the people within the management side of the Orica Green Edge squad come from the track which has always been very successful in the team's pursuits. But they do have a bit to cheer about Orica Green Edge, despite the many woes. Yesterday, Adam Yates finished in 7th, Greg Van Avermaet, and 1 place in front of Chris Froome, and Simon Yates finished in 23rd position. Both of them, the twin brothers, they were in that main group with the yellow jersey of Froome, Contador, Quintana, Valverde, Sagan and co, and they were 10 seconds in front of a small group that included the defending champion, Vincenzo Nibali. They also came in ahead of Thibaut Pinot, who was 3rd overall in the race last year. Andrew Talansky, the American hope for a top 10 finish. So there's a lot to be optimistic about for the rest of this tour for Orica Green Edge. Much of it with the Yates brothers, and the man who is surviving at the back, Michael Matthews, he could still be in with a chance. Possibly the transitional stages between the Pyrenees and the Alps, we might see number 105 on target for a stage victory. Gerrans, Albacini and Impey are no longer in the race. All out as a result of injuries that they incurred. For Gerrans and Impey it was on stage 3, for Albacini it was on stage 5. And Swain Tuff, the experienced Canadian who's ridden 8 Grand Tours, has said that
It's been the craziest opening week of any Grand Tour he's done. Crashes just seem to be happening everywhere.
That has gone out onto the course is Bretagne Sèche Environnement. 30 seconds now to the start of Lampre Merida, who is the team of Rui Costa, the former world champion and of course the champion of Portugal in the team in the individual road race.
10 secondes.
Quite a big mixture of riders. Rafael Valls, a good time trialist. Jose Serpa from Colombia. Well, they're starting, the third team to start this afternoon. They're starting with a full complement of 9 riders. Rui Costa will be the one hoping for a good performance by his team, because he currently sits nicely up in the overall standings, 23rd. He's lost 4.5 minutes so far, but a good ride by him could place him up at the top end of the overall standings. I think there's going to be a major reorganisation on the eve of the first rest day. Most of the riders, as soon as the race is finished, around about 6:15, will leave here by bus and head down to Lorient, to the airport, and fly down to Pau for a rest day tomorrow on the eve of 3 very, very difficult days into the Pyrenees. Just a quick look down there at the start. This is Vannes, and this is the Château de l'Hermine, which was originally a castle given its name for the defensive and residential building built by the Duke of Brittany around about 1380. A beautiful walled city. In 1798, the 2 towers remaining from the ducal residence were destroyed by Julien Lagorce.
Well, we'll be sorry to see the end of the beautiful chateau that we've seen over the last few days here, both in Normandy and in Brittany. Brittany being given a big slice of the Tour de France this year because it was missing out the last few years, and they've certainly paid Brittany back. There are reportedly around the course, and we'll see them as we move around the course, a lot of people watching the Tour de France today. Well, Lampre is the team that's gone. FDJ will be the next team to leave the start house. They are starting at 5-minute intervals. That's to try and stop any of the teams getting mixed up with each other. And just to emphasise, the time of the team is taken on the 5th rider to cross the line. So in other words, you're only as good as the 5th man in your race team today.
Now, theoretically, that's not too bad a finisher to have the 5th man finish, but here the difficult thing for the riders, Phil, is the fact that they finish at the top of an almost 2-kilometre climb. And the top part of the climb, in fact, is the hardest, and inside of the last 500 metres, it's 7.2%. So you could see a guy start on the bottom of the climb with the rest of the team and lose himself for 10 or 15 seconds in the charge up to the finish line. That's why it's going to be very careful to nurture and steer all of your riders through the whole of this 28-kilometre course.
Well, Lampre underway. We're picking them up as they say au revoir to Vannes, heading now to the Plumelet for the finishing ride of the day. They've got all 9 men. See what the difference the extra 3 men make here.
Burning out.
As a much bigger team time trial formation. Paul Orica lost 1/3 of their team with broken bones. And Michael Matthews, by the way, riding in that lineup with broken ribs.
That needs to do a good ride is the team of Thibaut Pinot, who finished 3rd in the Tour de France last year. FDJ, or Française des Jeux.
L'ex-champion de France, Arnaud Demar, qui a réalisé 2 top 10 sur cette édition 2015, Sébastien Chavanel, le poisson pilote.
Well, just looking at this team, they've got to do a great ride for their man Thibaut Pinot, because he hasn't had a great start to the Tour de France. The man who finished in 3rd place overall last year.
Française des Jeux, yes, Thibaut Pinot 3rd last year, not having such a good ride this time around, but they've still got their riders here in the lineup. Just lost their 1 man, William Bonnet, crashing out of the Tour de France early on this year. Very bad crash on those long straight highways. It's a tricky old start this. The boys are coming out a little bit gently. A massive crowd in Vannes to see them on their way.
Well, how embarrassing. In the past we have seen riders and teams coming out very quickly at a complicated start to a team time trial list and seen accidents early on. They certainly do not want that in front of a home French crowd.
Well, the one man who's had a torrid tour, especially in the opening days, is Thibaut Pinot. You know, the 21, he's 3rd in the Tour. He had bicycle problems on that dreaded day, I recall, over the Paris-Roubaix. He tried a new bike, that didn't work for him either. And so it went on, Paul, and we were watching him slip away, and as he's now said, he was falling as well, getting involved in crashes. He's since said he's got no chance now of a podium in Paris, and he might aim for the King of the Mountains.
Well, he has to change his goals, I think, during this Tour de France after a lot of bad luck at the start, but the team have got to get him psychologically ready because there's still 2 weeks to go.
Well, we're all cheers, of course, the French team here, which is a very popular team, riding on home soil. Won a performance, and Thibaut Pinot still very much part of this tour, though. It's 6.5 minutes behind the race leader. I think that's pretty near impossible to recover, even on the high climbs of the Pyrenees, which are with us on Tuesday, by the way. That's when we start our journey through the southern mountain chain linking France with Spain.
Col Agnel. This one of the teams rolling away, the Belgian team missing out on their man Greg Henderson, who had to withdraw from the team just a couple of days ago. Tony Galopin started the day well placed in the overall standings. I think he'd like to stay a little bit up there. He's in 4th place, they're looking for 26 seconds. But Lotto Soudal have never really been one of the top teams when it comes to the team time trial. But maybe buoyed by the fact that Tony Galopin is riding so well, they may well put in an expired performance here this afternoon. And just looking there, a rider from FDJ has been caught up. This is because, as I said, this is quite a tricky and technical course here, especially after the first 10 kilometres. The first 10 kilometres are very, very fast as they move away from Vannes through Kerplat and then through Saint-Arve, through the first time check, and then they've got a long false flat up to Mont Blanc, and that climbs up steadily, not very much, not a great amount in altitude, but up to about 150 metres above sea level. And that false flat is where, if you're struggling a little bit in the wheels, you can find yourself getting popped off. There's a big chance there when you look back down there to the Bay of Morbihan. And it's a Breton name, Morbihan, which means the small sea, opening out on the Quiberon Bay.
Oh, my heart rate's gone off now.
Bretagne, they seem to be riding quite well. They're looking now to go through the second time check. The fastest team was the first team through there, Orica Green Edge. These guys have been in the saddle for 26 minutes. Orica Green Edge, well, 22 kilometres.
Didn't even notice that it was on the previous race.
First time ticket in 25.5 minutes, and so it would seem that after a very, very fast start by Bretagne, you can now start to see why Orica Green Edge. So Team Europcar have done a pretty good ride as well. The second best time for Europcar at the first time check, 11 minutes and 18 seconds. Right now back with Team Lotto Soudal. This is Lamprey. They're looking at the time of Bretagne. They recorded the best time there as they went through the second point of 23 minutes, and Lamprey are going to go well inside of that. Lamprey Merida. Let's not forget, they are down one man. They lost Matteo Bono, and so that's a good ride by Lamprey coming through there. As you can see, this is really very much a coastal town, a coastal city, and Vannes, by the way, has been the start to many Transat races, and a number of big Transat yachts are actually developed and built and assembled in the boatyards in Vannes. Back with Astana, well, they're the first of the teams of the big favourites to start, and they start at 5 minutes to 4 o'clock here. Astana is a strong squad. They've got all 9 riders. Vincenzo Nibali will be supported by Lars Boom, Jakob Fulsang, Andrei Grivko, a former Ukrainian time trial champion, group chef, Kanget, who himself is a good time trial, Scarponi, Tarame, and Louis Vestra. So Lamprey have recorded the best time as we go back now to have a quick look at Lotto Soudal. That's a man who is best placed in the overall standings there, number 71, and Tony Galopin. And he's ridden extremely well. I thought he might have got a little bit closer to the victory yesterday, but For a team that's not really renowned for their team time trialling prowess over the years, they actually look to me to be going quite fast.
Yeah.
Maybe inspired by the position of Tony Gallopin in the overall standings.
Well, Adam Hansen is proving a giant there. He just goes so far down the line, he gets back in it again. This is him nearest camera now, but number 76 on the road bike, Paul, because of the pain in his shoulder.
Yeah, and he said he put out a message on social media this morning to say how strange it was for him to be riding on his normal bike, but because of his shoulder, he actually can't get down into that low aerodynamic position. But you've got to admit, for that man, he's hard as nails.
Hard as nails. This is the 8th team to go. I Am Cycling. Eddie Senior, Director Sportif, former champion of France, as we're looking for a good lineup here now, and maybe a good performance from this team.
Well, a few people think this is a team that could produce a wild card performance. They are a good team. They are well drilled in the team time trial discipline, and for them, I think it would be quite a coup if they could.
So they quickly get themselves organised. Nobody actually rushing out of the start blocks here because it's a rather technical beginning, and they can't afford to have a touch of wheels or make a mistake.
Looks like the most experienced rider in the team leading them away through the opening kilometres, Sylvain Chavanel, 6 times French time trial champion, and he knows how important it is to get a good steady start for the riders, not to put anybody under pressure, to make sure that everybody gets away, is on the wheels, because you don't want to gap anyone in the first kilometre or so, because they end up spending 2 or 3 kilometres trying to catch back up.
Winning these team time trials for this team, but they're carrying a passenger. They've lost 3 riders with injuries. They've completely realigned their sights on this year's Tour de France.
So, job done for Orica Green Edge, stopping the clock at 37 minutes and 13 seconds, and all 6 surviving members of the Australian squad finishing together, and they've obviously decided as a tactic to try and stay together, all for one and one for all.
Take part in the Tour de France. They came with ambition, and this first 9 days, Paul, they've realised those ambitions.
They have, and I think we'll see a lot more of them, because it's a very strong squad, and of course happy to see Daniel Teckelheimer in the polka dot jersey.
Good day for him today. Be wearing that jersey when we go down to the Pyrenees, to the real mountains, when we recommence our racing on Tuesday, as they get themselves underway here.
Well, it was fabulous to see some of the photos and images coming through on social media from Asmara, which is the capital of Eritrea, where people are actually grouping together to be able to follow the Tour de France in plenty of the cinemas in downtown to enjoy the coverage of the Tour de France, and they're now national hero, Phil, I have to say, leading the King of the Mountains. This is Team Movistar. For me, this is a team that could create a bit of a surprise this afternoon. That's Alejandro Valverde and the rather large sunglasses over to the right-hand side.
And the man on his right shoulder is Nairo Quintana. The team, both of these riders could be amongst it when we get into the Pyrenees. The first 8 days have been a big worry for that team, but now they're getting to where they excel, and that's in the mountains. They'll do a good ride today, I think. Here comes the battling team from Lotto Soudal. The time check is just ahead. Made the best time up.
So, time check now as we come to the first time check. The time to beat at that point is the time of Lampre 11:11, and I didn't quite get the clock stopping there as they went through, but it wasn't too bad a time coming through for Lotto Soudal. They're looking to keep their man, Tony Gallopin, number 71, a little bit further up. The second best time at this point is currently Europcar at 7 seconds and Française de Jeu at 13 seconds, but it's the next time check which I think is the most precarious, because it's a very, very difficult part of the course. Adam Hansen, the 76, they're riding a normal machine. In fact, when we looked at just a little earlier at Team Movistar, another rider who's had to make, just struggling to stay in contact there, and this is One of the big riders, Jens de Boucher, is a former national champion of Belgium. He had a difficult time staying in contact. Down to just 5 riders now for Team Lamprey. This should be a good time for Lamprey. They've been the fastest so far.
And this is at the finishing line now, so I think we'll see a new marker here, Paul, because they've been heading it up right round.
Yeah, but the big problem is, Phil, as I mentioned earlier, it's so important to keep 5 riders together. This is not about finishing 1 or 2 riders. They will be the new leaders, but the question is, can they nurse that 5th rider? Because the important thing is, this is not the strength of an individual, it's the strength of the team coming up to the line.
Just hitting the line is Lamprey. They're putting the best time for the moment on the board, just outside 33 minutes. And they've been leading in all of the checks, so they've confirmed of the first 7 teams through, they are the fastest time at the finish. We only had 3 teams arrive at the finish, mind you, and it's quite clear, Paul, a lot of teams are cracking on that last section of the course because the Britann team only came in with 5 men that are required minimum.
You know, Team Europcar doing a pretty impressive rider. They were second at the first time check. They're coming up to the second time check now, and they've also gone through there with the second best time. That's an indication that they've managed the middle part of this race quite well. I have to say, plenty of teams can go out quickly, but there are 2 sections of the course between 10 and 15 kilometers, which I can see from the profile are very difficult. And then from 20 to 23 kilometers with 2 very long false flats. In fact, they've dropped back a bit there. For only the 4th time at the second time sprint there. They're for Team Europcar, 35 seconds down.
And the Lotto team with Adam Hansen, by the way, they're still in amongst it. They've got the 3rd best time at the first check, 11 minutes and 20 seconds. 6 riders from FDJ in our sights here just at the moment. So it looks to me...
Here in the team time trial, you can see that the teams try to stay together as long as they can and using the riders to a maximum. And then once a rider goes, okay, I can't follow the speed, he just does one more last big pull for the team, and then he pulls off, gets out of the way, and tries to finish within the team, or within the time limit. And they definitely need 5 riders up here. And I walked this morning the stage, the last kilometer. It is hard. You want to have 5 fresh riders in the last kilometer, because otherwise you're going to lose too much time here.
Thank you, Jens. We're watching the start now of the Dutch Lotto Jumbo team here. There are 2 Lotto teams. It's the National Lottery of Holland, this one. The other one's the National Lottery of Belgium, as they take their start here.
It's quite strange there when you think about the support that the national lotteries have put into cycling, because although we don't see the National Lottery named on Team Sky or on British Cycling, it in fact is the funding from the British National Lottery that has supported a lot of what were originally minority sports. When you think about swimming, rowing and cycling, the development and advancement of those sports has been due to the funding coming from the national lotteries. So Lotto Jumbo, they also need to put in a pretty good ride here, because they've got a man who is currently just outside of the top 10 in the overall standings, and that is Robert Hessing. He wears number 131. He's a little bit further forward. Great crowds here. As I say, as you look at these crowds moving away from Band, they're pretty technical and pretty precarious in the early part. Fortunately, it's dry, because as you can see, those white bands, the pedestrian crossings you can see in France here, if you get a little bit of moisture on those, they can be quite horrendous. And throw in the fact that these riders are riding aerodynamic machines, which have really been designed for aerodynamics rather than manoeuvrability, and some riders have a little bit of a difficult time actually handing them round technical corners.
Nice little look at the prefecture here of the Morbihan, which is the region we're in, and Vannes is where we made the start this morning.
Well, it's a pretty old building as well, because as the prefecture, it was built in 1865 during the reign of Napoleon III. And the new prefecture building was built by the regional departmental architect of Émile Amet on the site of a former Jacobin convent.
Now watching the arrival of Argonne, they were 5th at the first check, and it looks like they haven't improved on the time here of Lamprey, because that's well, they've got themselves into a rhythm, but it's still a little way to where the clock stops now. Let me just see, they were 14 seconds slower than Lamprey at the first check. There's going to be still slower, but they're getting a lot closer to the Lamprey session, I think.
Well, I think the important thing is, Phil, is to take a fairly conservative start here, because it's pretty much pan flat over the first 10 kilometres or 6 miles, and then once you get into the second segment, the next 10 kilometre section of the course, that's when you start to get these long false flats, and if you've got the power of a full complement of 9 riders, it is a little bit advantageous. These guys are down one man because they lost one of their riders in the early part of this race, and that was Andreas Schillinger, but they seem to be coping with that fairly well because it's waiting for the clock to stop. It's just around this corner here. His second best time for them, just 23 seconds off.
Yes, and as they've gone through there, the I Am Cycling team have gone through with the best time. First team did better, the third team off, Lamprey. They've actually gone through 7 seconds faster at 10 kilometres. So that's the Swiss team, I Am Cycling, 11 minutes 4 for them.
Well, a lot of people thinking they could be a little bit of the dark horse in this team time trial here this afternoon. Of course, they've got a really good maestro when it comes to the team time trial. The individual time trialist, Sylvain Chavanel. This is FDJ trying to nurse their 5th man up towards the finishing line because they're down to 5.
And this doesn't look like a hill on our television screens, but believe me, it is. And it's a real heavy one for 2 kilometres to the line. They've got to keep that 5th man. It's his job, and he's battling to hold on to the riders here, but he's going to get up on the line. Clock stops on the 5th rider, and they go there into second place, 33.48 for FDJ.
Second best time for FDJ. 45 seconds is the gap that they have lost on Team Lamprey. 58 seconds lost by Britannia, and a good 4 minutes lost by Orica Greenedge. Now back with Lotto Jumbo, the Dutch National Lottery. This is a team that's looking after their big leader, and of course Robert Hessing is the man that they would like to ride well here. Wilco Kelderman just slipping back there, number 132. He rode a very good opening time trial in Holland, but since then struggled a little bit. Lauriston Dam at the back. Next team to come out, as you listen to the Breton bagpipes in the background, is Trek Factory Racing. 5 minutes after the start of these guys, we will see the start of Team Astana.
31 minutes. No bloody chance.
Start house now and have a look at the start of Trek here. This was the team which had Fabian Cancellara in that yellow jersey, and poor Fabian crashed out of the tour.
And I think a bit of a handicap really, Phil, because a team like this would have wanted the big powerhouse, because most of these guys, when we talk about professional bike riders, we think about them having a big V8 engine. Fabian Cancellara, I would say, is a V12, and probably something along the lines of a Maserati or a Ferrari, so he would be dearly missed by this squad in this team time. But also a man who would have been able to do long turns, allowing his teammates to get a little bit of respite in the slipstream.
That's right, Bauke Mollema is the team leader. He wears 141, and he's the rider that they're now working for. And I hope a good climbing session at Arredondo as well during the next few days of this tour, and go into some tough days with a major finish on Tuesday, top of a brand new mountain for the Tour de France.
Yes, both Bauke Mollema and Arredondo were in that leading group of contenders at the top of the Mur de Bretagne just 24 hours ago, and they will also now be starting to think forward, get themselves through the rest day tomorrow down in Po, and be looking up to the high spots of the Pyrenees. I have to say, 3 very, very difficult days in the Pyrenees, but today's team time trial will have a little bit of a sort out of who is up and down in the overall standings, and we'll get a clearer picture of which are the stronger teams, not necessarily the stronger individual, but who's got the strongest team to support them in the next phase of the tour.
That's the situation at the first check. I Am Cycling's just gone through about 5 or 6 minutes ago with the best time, with 11 minutes 4 seconds.
Well, about 3 or 4 minutes now to the start of Team Astana. They start at 5 minutes to 4 o'clock local time, and then we start to get down to the big names. At 4:15 is Team Movistar, and I think Team Movistar will do a fairly impressive ride. They've got 3 national time trial champions on that squad. 4:30, the former world champions in the discipline, Ethics Quickstep, but they're also down at their firepower. Of course, Tony Martin, the former leader of this race. And then the last 3 teams to start, to me, are the big 3 teams. Tinkoff Saxo at 4:35, BMC Racing at 4:40 and Team Sky at 4:45. Sky having the advantage of being the last team to start. And we did hear overnight that the race organisation actually sent a special seamstress to the hotel of Chris Froome, so his team tunic could be tailor-made.
The Lotto hanging on in there. They're not too far away from the time of Lamprey, but they are handicapped as well. And it looks to me as though they are not going to challenge the leaderboard here amongst these early starters.
Well, Team Lamprey did a very, very good start. They started off with the fastest time of 11, and they set the benchmark for everybody else. But I have to say that Lotto Soudal, I think, are fairly inspired today by the high position of their man in the overall standings. And look at the rider on the front here. This is Thomas de Kent. He's the rider who has been doing a lot of the pacemaking to set up the foundations for the victory of guys like Andre Greipel.
Let's see what happens with the Europe car team. They've lost a few riders out on course, but they've kept more than the required 5 here. Just as they come, you can see the way they're labouring up this climb. It's costing them their formation, and they're just trying to get each other up the hill here. They keep looking around, seeing how they are. Thomas Buckler on the front, and it's the 5th man. They must leave there, and that's about all they've got now as they come up to the line.
It's a nasty little corner there. Although the average last 500 metres is 7%, that final corner is around about 10%. And you will see Thomas Buckler look over his shoulder here. Just as he looks over his shoulder, he knows it's not much point of him riding up here like a madman, because he needs to nurse up the 5th man.
Europe car hit the line here. They've just kept their 5 required riders as they come in with a 33.57, 3rd best at the moment, with only 5 teams finished.
Yeah, but maybe more importantly, Phil, we need to look at the time gap, because that time gap was almost a minute lost over 33 minutes of racing. That could be very important a little bit later on, although I do think the next teams will be a lot closer together. In about 45 seconds or so, we should be seeing the start of Team Astana. Now, Vincenzo Nibali, the question is, how are the team going to support him on today's stage? I think they've got a solid squad. And Vincenzo Nibali losing 10 seconds, well, I don't think he has too much to worry about just yet.
There he is, the man that took the lead in the Tour de France last year for the first time on stage 2 when the race was in the UK, finishing in Sheffield. He lost it only for a day to a Frenchman, Galopin. He got it back and he won the race in Paris. He lost 10 seconds, as Paul said, on a very small hill yesterday. And that made him look a little bit possibly fragile. We'll see. He needs to get some time back today, and Astana are on the way. They've got a full squad of riders here, Astana.
Yes, they're one of 12 teams starting with a full complement of riders, and they've got firepower as well. Lars Boom, Jakob Fuglsang, Andre Grivko, Gruzchev of Kazakhstan, Tanel Kange from Estonia, who's a very good time trialist, Michele Scarponi, Rem Taramay, a good time trialist too, and Louis Vestre. As we go back a little further up the road after 5 kilometres, this is the organisation of Team Trek Factory Racing.
Great Greipel we've cut to at the moment, and it looks to me as though that we've got riders. This is Lotto now coming up towards the finishing line.
Andre Greipel is going to be the 5th man. They've really got to nurse him up, because as I said so often, Phil, this is a very difficult discipline. It's not about being the strongest man in the group, it's about being the 5th strongest man, which is why they wait for the clock to stop to represent the strength and depth of a team. Thomas de Kent doing a phenomenal job on the front. This man has really worked hard since the start of the tour, but just crossing the line there. I tell you what, I have to say, I think Andre Greipel really pulled himself inside. Look at the face on him, just in about 5th position there, with that black tip to his helmet.
A huge effort there for the 4th best time thus far of the 7 teams at the finish of the 22 teams in the race. So expect to see the teams that carry the individual favourites for this race to really turn on the style. And the first one's on course now. That's Astana for Vincenzo Nibali. We should have the French team just about ready to start now, down in Vannes at the start, and there they are as we see them now. And they've had a very good tour so far. They've kept their 9 riders intact, I think. Oh, we lost just the one with the crash, didn't we?
Yeah, Nasser Bouhani was the rider who crashed out very early on in the northern part of France, and the man who was expected to bring home the glory. And if you're looking for a man to get the award for the best full set beard in the Tour de France this year, I think that would have to go to the leader man, Geoffrey Soupé. He's over on the left-hand side.
So Cofidis ready to start now. They've got a possible challenger for the overall as we go out, but nothing long-term, let's face it. This is the popular French team from the north of France, although we're over in the west side now. They'll be very popular here. Geoffroy Soup is the man who's leading them away.
Chavanel is the man in second position. You can just see how hard this time trial has been. They're looking to rival the time of Lampre Merida, 33.03, and again it's a question of the fifth man will stop the clock. Coming up to the line, Chavanel has recovered a fraction. You can see just how difficult this is. As they come up to the line, they have stopped the clock with a new best time of 32.53. IAM Cycling go top of the leaderboard, but the big names are still to fire down towards the end. That's Chavanel. Lotto Jumbo now coming to sprint point number 2. They've gone outside the time of IAM Cycling, but I think they'll be reasonably happy with the time that they're recording for their man, Robert Hessing.
The yellow helmets now of Lotto Jumbo here. As they go out to the second check. They were 6th at the first check, whereas Astana is now the leader there. It's still a little way to go up to the checkpoint, but it looks as though they might be getting better here.
Yep, one rider pulling over to go around the roundabout a slightly different way, but there as we stop the time check there, they are keeping themselves high up in the overall standings. Just a quick look down there. Van, the 12th of Juillet 2015. So we now know that this is a very important rendezvous for the Tour de France on the eve of the first individual rest day that the riders will have before we charge into the heart of the Pyrenees for 3 days. The first day is rather a strange day with a longer flat stage with just one climb down towards the end, but it's a climb that the Tour de France has never ventured up before. As we go back here to look at the back of Vincenzo Nibali, the climb at the end of the first day is to the summit of La Pierre Saint-Martin. It's a 15-kilometer climb after the rest day, and that will be a bit of a shocker now. To 7 riders. Vincenzo Nibali, I wonder who calls the shots in this. Louis Vestre is one of the most experienced riders when it comes to the time trial. That is Joachim Rodriguez, and this is Team Katusha. They're down one man after their man Luca Paolini was thrown out for posting a positive dope control for traces of cocaine. Team manager Jose Acevedo, himself a very good climber, a very good rider in the Tour de France. The last 10 seconds now counting by for Team Katusha. So the Russian squad, Katusha on the road, 17th overall at the start of the day for Joachim Rodriguez. He's around about 2 minutes down, but he's got himself a stage victory so far, and that was at the summit of the Mur de Puy. There he is, number 91. And again, chance to see the huge crowds turning out at the start here in Van. It's a great day out of the team time trial or even an individual time trial as well, because you get a chance to see a long moment of cycling. Each team going out at 5-minute intervals. The first rider this afternoon started, the first team this afternoon started at 3 o'clock. So you've got 1 3/4 hours from the first rider starting to the last one. So it's a good afternoon out for everybody. And of course, in Brittany, you can always expect the crowds to be au rendezvous. It's interesting to see that as we look at the time checks going through there, that Astana, despite looking a little bit raggedy going through the first time check, that they were the best time, just 1 second faster than IAM Cycling. IAM Cycling have got the fastest time at the finish, 32 minutes and 53 seconds. As we go back to a quick look at the organisation, Gianpaolo Caruso is the rider on the back wearing number 92. Slipping back, Jacopo Guarnieri of Italy. The remainder of the riders now, this is what a team time trial should look like. A nice long line, one rider doing the turn, and you can see just slipping away. He's one of the experienced riders, Lars Bourg. Drops to the back and then gets into the line of his other teammates. And while he sits there, he'll be recuperating a little bit. He'll find it's not quite as hard to sit there, maybe 25 to 30% less energy being dispensed by Lars Bourg. as he recovers, and he allows his teammate on the front turn. Coming back there, Vincenzo Nibali, he's also done his turn, and he will get into the slipstream.
Now these boys are going to have to recover from the shock of losing 2 men rather early on there. Astana are best time at the first check.
Well, despite the fact that they lost that man, and I think really Reim Tarameh got lost from this group because his teammate, who was supposed to be the rider to get onto the wheel, lost the wheel and wasn't able to communicate with Reim Tarameh. Now, you've got to be really honest in a team time trial like this. If you're not feeling good, you've got to shout to your teammate to allow him to get onto the wheel.
Looking at Trek Factory Racing here at the moment, as we see Jens Voigt's former team now doing a good rider, improving all the way, Jens.
I guess then their tactics, they had an easy, steady start, saving some energy to the end, because the second half of the course is the crucial, is the important part of it. And it's not the strongest team, or it's not the team with the strongest individual riders winning to do it. It's the most balanced team, the most well-balanced team, having the best time today, and hopefully the boys doing a good job here.
Yeah, but Jens, you know about that from riding with Credit Agricole in the past, and with Fabian Cancellara. Fabian Cancellara must have been sort of the metronome in this team, the guy who shouted out the rhythm.
Definitely it is. We always had, I spent many years now with Fabian Cancellara on the same teams. There's MTN Quebecer coming by.
Yes, they're coming in now, you're right, Jens. So we're looking at the man in the polka dot jersey. Tanya will take behind and not. He'll keep that today. There's no official mountains in the tour today, but boy, they start on Tuesday. And Bosenhagen are bringing them up towards the line here. They've had a good ride, Paul. We're comparing them to the best time in IM cycling, and the country coming up in 3rd position. They might just slip away though as they come to the finish.
Yeah, I think they will have benefited from the experience of the man there with the Norwegian flag around his shoulders, and I have been told that he's really enjoying himself with MTN Quebecer. He really enjoys the spirit that the team is bringing to cycling. So they slip away a fraction in the last 200 or 300 metres. They're a little bit off the mark of IAM cycling. They stop the clock there with the 8th best time, 34 minutes and 11 seconds. Now this is an interesting team. An important ride now is expected for Movistar. Jose Luis Arrieta is the team manager. That is Nairo Quintana, and there are plenty of Colombian spectators and supporters out to support that man. Just over to the second from the right-hand side is Alejandro Valverde. This is a team that contains 3 national time trial champions. The time trial champion of Spain, Castroviejo, time trial champion of Italy, Mallory, time trial champion of Great Britain, Alex Dowsett.
We're looking at the faces of Movistar here. Important team time trial for these boys, and that man in particular, Nairo Quintana, Paul. They're going to have to guide him around the team time trial course. If anything, try and gain a few seconds rather than losing them.
Well, this year, you know, this team over the past, Phil, has been regarded very much as a team just for the mountains, to attack in the hills and the Pyrenees and the Alps. But I think for the 2015 Tour de France, they've brought together the most balanced team they've had in recent years. They've got 3 individual time trial champions of their countries. You've got Castroviejo for Spain, Alex Dowsett for Great Britain, and they've got Mallory from Italy. So I think they've got the power to do a good ride in this team time trial.
Well, we're watching the concentration now, and that is Vincenzo Nibali there. Astana heading up to the second check, and when they get there, we'll see it, they're held on to the game, having lost 2 men.
Well, they're now looking very organised, despite the fact that they've lost 2 men. I think really if there'd been a bit better communication, they only would have lost 1 rider in that situation. But, you know, at 50, 52 kilometres an hour, it's very difficult if you make that mistake and somebody doesn't call the team to slow down a fraction to allow somebody to recover. And that's what happened, I think, to Reim Tarameh. That's what it appeared to be anyway. But now they seem to have got themselves just that little better organised. They're looking now to challenge the time of IAM cycling. They're the best team at point number 2, 22.16, and this is a very, very good time. Paul and JC Perot, another one of the great time trial specialists, getting the nod there from Michael Querel. He's a Breton, number 14, just wasn't able to make the junction. You've got to shout to your teammates when it's like this. You might be on the river, but you've got to move in, because normally when you're sliding back, as you can see, Christophe Riblon there, number 17, you count the number of riders coming by, and you're expecting it to be 8. But if one of your teammates is struggling, you're hoping they'll give you the shot to get straight into the slipstream, because it's tough if you miss the slipstream at speeds like this. They're looking at 22 kilometers to go. Tinkoff Saxo will be the next team. Just 3 teams left to start now. Tinkoff at 25.2, BMC at 22, and BMC Team Sky at 42.
So AG2 are out on course, and Team Katusha is heading up to the second checkpoint. Still the best time there by Astana Katusha. Haven't really got a man for the occasion. They'll just do a solid time, I think. They're not going to challenge the leaderboard here.
This is at the top of the climb. The Côte du Cadoudal just outside of Plumelec. So, waiting for the confirmation. Just looking at the face of all of these up. Best time has just come through for Movistar. New best time, 21 minutes and 54 seconds. Well, they've come to the Tour de France this year with a strong squad. Phil, just looking at these crowds, it reminds me of when I raced at the Tour de France. Whenever the Tour de France came into Brittany, the crowds were au rendezvous, as they say in French.
Well, they're doing 41 kilometers now and climbing a slight hill here. Just about enough room to change partners at the front. A little bit of a gesticulation there, which was coming from Izagirre. He wants to see where the line is working here, and the crowd are crowding just that little bit too close at the moment, trying to catch a glimpse of Nairo Quintana, or indeed Alejandro Valverde.
Another great climber, just trying to get on the back there. Number 52, winner Anacona, one of the mates of Nairo Quintana. Quintana, well, he's up at the front, he's doing a great job of working, but now the pressure is starting to be felt.
Alex Dowsett, we saw him yesterday, he's still got a badly damaged elbow.
Well, Phil, he told us last night that he was very, very concerned about this stage, because this is the stage that he was brought into the Tour de France for, and he actually, you see the low-profile handlebars the riders have got in the middle, he was actually cutting a small hole into those bars to, well, this is not very good, this is
well, I'm not sure they were actually waving at the crowd. I think they were trying to wave at the guys doing the pacemaking, saying, hang on guys, you're splitting the team up.
Well, this is bad, this is not good organisation there. They're looking over their shoulders. I'm trying to see who the rider is who's blown them apart there. And it may well be that it's number 51 himself, because
I think it's Valverde who's done the damage up there, and Quintana's trying to hang on to him.
Yeah, that was just a little bit of excitement there. Valverde and Quintana so much stronger now. This is not the good thing to do. They've done so well so far, Phil, to post the fastest time in the intermediate time split.
That little fellow on the front's Castabriello, it's him that split the team, and the other two team leaders are trying to put it back into order.
Well, again, you've got to communicate, you've got to shout to each other, but you know, going through a crowd like that, it's very difficult to hear it. Teammates shouting to you, slow down, back it up a bit as we go to the finish line. Cofidis, well, they're not the team that expected to set the race on fire here this afternoon, but having posted the fastest time, it's now going to be survival bit out there, Phil, for Team Movistar.
Well, this is Team Cofidis arriving, and they're not a danger to the leaderboard at all. They're racing the 13th finish as they come through. They were 15th at the second time check, and the 13th now at the finish.
Well, down to 5 riders, Cofidis, as they come up to the line. They have lost a little bit now. The penultimate team to start, world champions of the discipline, all riders present and correct, BMC Racing. 10 seconds for Van Garderen, Rowan Dennis. Glimpse there, number 61, TJ Van Garderen. Just having a look to see who leads them away here as they get themselves well organised. They won last year the World Time Trial Championships, and that was in Ponferrada in Spain, with a 30-second beating of everybody else. Today they know how important this is. TJ Van Garderen starts the day up in the overall standings, position at number 3. He's looking for 13 seconds on Chris Froome, and he knows this is an important day for him. Back with Movistar. Movistar now need to get themselves organised. They need to get themselves back into a situation where they have posted the fastest time out on the course.
To the line, Are they going to keep this man in yellow? He knows they've got to ride strongly. They've got to beat Team BMC, or if they lose to Team BMC, they mustn't lose by more than 13 seconds.
Fifth in the black and blue.
And I do believe the biggest applause there for Team Sky as they go away. Now they were beaten by Team BMC in the World Championship. They only finished 4th, Team Sky. Now they don't want that to happen today.
No, they don't. It looked like Geraint Thomas from Wales was the rider leading them off the front. Olympic gold medalist from London back in 2012. It's not important to get a rapid start like this because you've got to make sure everybody gets their position into the slipstream. If you go out of the gap too quickly and you tail one of your riders off, the rider's in a situation where he's never able to recover and get back into contention. Another Welshman just on the back there, number 37, Luke Rowe, while Movistar now, Phil, are inside of the tunnel of noise, which is the crowd up to the top of the Côte de Cadoudeli.
And they've shed the riders. There's only 5 men here now as they go up towards the finish. This is going to be crucial for them, as Movistar being led by Alejandro Valverde, their strongman, and Quintana, the 2 leaders now dominating the team, showing their strengths when the roads tip up. Have they done enough to hold best time at the top?
Well, funny thing is, the man at the front there, if he casts his mind back to 2009, was the winner at the top of this climb as I start to that.
But Astana looking there at all the clocks. They will be very, very concerned by this. Movistar have moved 18 seconds ahead of Astana, having been behind them at the first check. And I can tell you, by the way, Saxo Tinkoff, or Tinkoff Saxo, has gone through his best time at the first check, also getting the better of Astana.
They are nursing themselves up, but look at the time gap, Phil. They're looking at a huge time here over this final few meters. Quintana is in 2nd position. You can see the concentration even through that visor. You can pop into his eyes there and see him looking around the corner. Where's the finishing line? Let's get there as quickly as possible. This is going to be a very impressive ride by Team Movistar, and this is the team, Phil, that want to move their Colombian climber higher up in the overall standing. This is a great ride.
Well, we won't know time losses and gains till they're all finished, but this is the best they can do, and Movistar are going to rewrite the leaderboard here, so they're going to hit the line with the 5 men. They go top. It's an excellent ride. 32.19 for Movistar. So that is a big beating, and of course these 2 guys in our lens at the moment have just gained 31 seconds over Vincenzo Nibali.
And as I said to you a little earlier, Phil, the last time that the Tour de France finished the stage up here, Alejandro Valverde was the winner of the stage, 31 seconds over Nibali. So, Movistar now have the team to beat as we look there out on the course.
As they're coming around to the check here for Team AG2R, but they were way down the list of the first check, and that's where they're going to be this time too, I'm afraid.
Well, that's a bit of a shocker, really, because this is a solid squad, a team that over the last 3 years has always got some success out of the Tour de France, and of course last year they finished in 2nd and 6th place in the overall standing, so I'm a bit surprised to see them crumble in this team time test.
Just the 14th best time for them, 23.01 for Team AG2R.
Well, at 10 kilometres, a new best time goes to Tinkoff Saxo, with only 1 more team to come to that point, 2 more teams to come to that point, BMC Racing and Team Sky. They're looking very well organised. As I said, it's a team that's got lots of firepower under the bonnet. You just noticed there the green jersey of Peter Sagan. There's one of the climbs out on the course. How many different flags from how many different nations can you see down there? The black and white one, by the way, is the flag of Brittany. So obviously extremely popular in this part of the world. The 28-kilometre team time trial here is proving to be quite a test. AG2R. 3, 6, down to 7 riders. JC Perrault is in there as well. He wears number 11, Romain Bardet. They've shed 1 or 2 unities now as we go back a little further on the road. Just looking there at the yellow tunic there of Chris Froome. In fact, they brought in a special tailor to make sure that the skin suit there fit him to perfection. It's always a worry when teams look for marginal gains through all of their equipment throughout everything they do during the year, whether it's on the bike or the clothing that they use, and then you have to wear a leader's jersey in a race like the Tour de France. But the sponsor, the manufacturer of the jersey here, Le Coq Sportif, the French sponsor, actually brought a seamstress from just down the road here to make sure that that suit was perfectly fitted for Chris Froome. Penultimate team on the course, so they haven't got to the intermediate time split yet, but the fastest time at the finish with a phenomenal performance is Team Movistar, 32 minutes 19.
Well, we continue on course. Tinko Saxo is setting the pace, but BMC and Team Sky, the last two teams on the road, we're waiting now for BMC to get to that crucial first check.
Well, you know, Phil, the amazing thing about this course is it's not really that important, the first check. It's all about the second check and the final check at the finishing line, because teams can go out very, very quickly over the first part, the first 10 or 11 minutes of effort, and then they can put riders under stress and they're not able to survive into the final climb. This final climb is so very, very difficult, and you can lose yourself 20 to 30 seconds in the last 2 kilometers.
So as we're looking at the team of Peter Sagan here, let me remind you how it all still at the start today. Chris Froome in the last team to start is in yellow. TJ Van Garderen 13 seconds behind, that's what he needs in the team time trial. Contador 36 seconds behind, nearly the big loser at 1:48, and Quintana at 1:56.
Well, we're just getting information over the race radio that the new best time at the time check is BMC Racing. They've just gone through their field inside of 11 minutes. And the first team to do that, first team 54.
Well, now only Team Sky to come to that first check, but Team BMC, the World Team Time Trial Champions, are turning on the style. And when we get the Chris Froome's team through, we'll be able to suggest who might be the next leader of the Tour de France.
Yeah, you can see number 61 there. Well, for a moment, you could see TJ Van Garderen looking very strong, very powerful. Well, that's an amazing lead there by BMC at the first time check out on the course. This is Etixx Quickstep, not a bad ride for them either, you know, because Etixx Quickstep, a man down, a very strong man down. They're missing the man who led this race, and that, of course, was Tony Martin, but they are great. They were the team that won the World Time Trial Championships twice when it was first organised in 2012 and 13. But they were beaten in that discipline in 2014 by none other than Team BMC Racing. So, Movistar are the leaders on the finishing line, but BMC Racing have gone through the first time check with the fastest time. There's only one team left to get to that point as we go back down to the finishing straight now and have a quick look here at Team Giant Alpecin. Not a bad ride for them either, Team Giant Alpecin. The white jersey there on the shoulders of Warren Barguil. He's a great prospect for France for the future, and that's why these guys, who are really pretty much a team built for the flatlands and for riders like John Degenkolb, I think have really risen to the occasion. But it's such a painful finish to the top of the Côte du Caboudel.
And this is Warren Barguil here, who is, every second counts. They've got to get him up. John Degenkolb there, boy, it's hurting, but he's crucial. Time taken on the fifth man. They've all got to hang on in there, but they're using their team leader here, Warren Barguil, to bring them up towards the finishing line. Doesn't want to concede too much time today. Barguil looks at John Degenkolb, decides he may have to do it all himself. He's checked the last man, the fifth man, coaxing him along.
Yeah, but how easy does Warren Barguil look there in that white jersey? He borrowed that, by the way, because he is 56 seconds down on Peter Sagan in that competition, but he looks so easy. This young guy, I think we're going to talk about him a lot in the future.
Well, they come up, they hit the line, they've lost 1:32 to the big contenders on Movistar. That is not good, whichever way you look at it, for Giant Alpecin, and in particular for Warren in the front now. Let's go back out to the flying figures here of Tinkoff Saxo.
Well, if you talk about Manchester United or if you talk about Barcelona as football teams, this is one of those teams that we're looking at here in the sport of professional cycling. Alberto Contador, Peter Sagan. Peter Sagan in that green jersey, he's a guy, Phil, and I've said this so many times since he started. He's only 24 years of age, and at 24 years old, he doesn't yet realise what ability he has got.
And Ivan Basso at the back there, former winner of the Tour of Italy and podium in the Tour de France, can't work with this team. He's waving everybody in front of him, number 42, and he's now put Contador to go through. So he's cracking.
Well, he is, and it's all because of the speed. They were second at the first time check, just 7 seconds adrift. But, you know, if he can recover a fraction, they may be able to give them a little bit of assistance in the last part of the race, but they really are cranking up the pressure.
Now, this is the team who's let it set in the new marks back through the checkpoints. Best time with the only team inside 11 minutes of the first check, 10 minutes 54 seconds. And now Tinkoff Saxo heading up to the second check.
Well, 10 minutes and 54 seconds. They are the first team to go inside of the 11-minute mark. See a little hand signal there? That was just to give a signal to the guys behind. Just watch out. There's a little bit of danger. Look at the speed here from this team. They are the specialists. They are, though, wonder or not, being challenged by this team. This is 32 kilometres an hour. They're going up a slight false flat here. Number 39 sitting on the front, Geraint Thomas, Olympic gold medalist from 2012. Luke Rowe just sitting on the back there as well, getting himself into that low-profile position. The massive big Ian Stannard, number 38. 34 is Wouter Poels. He's a great climber on that squad. A little bit further forward, another good climber is Leopold Koenig, doing the long turns now, dragging the team along. Chris Froome, that's what he has to do. His engine is just that little bit bigger than everybody else's, but he doesn't want to blow the team apart. He'll do a slightly longer turn than everybody else, then swing off and drop to the back of that line. Look at this now, 47 kilometres an hour.
First check, they were 0.02 of a second quicker, BMC. At the second check, it's the other way around by 0.75 of a second only. Now here comes Tinkoff coming up. Movistar are holding that first position, and it's going to be Movistar who stay up there. This is still a battle to the line for Contador. And Sagan, he's in. The time is 24 seconds slower, and so now they're going to have to wait, and he's delighted with that.
He is very. That was Nairo Quintana with a massive smile across his face as he looked down at the same television.
He's gained 24 seconds on Contador.
Thank you very much. I'll have that. He lost a little bit of time early on. Quintana, Phil, is looking at 16th place overall, but he will readjust that. I have to say, Alejandro Valverde sitting at the top spot there was also looking very, very happy with that.
Well, that's a great ride by Movistar with 2 teams left to finish. The worst they can expect now is a 3rd place finish for Quintana and for Alejandro Valverde. And he's just gained 24 seconds, both of them, on Alberto Contador. Team Sky, led by the Maillot Jaune, the captain of the squad, is driving them. It's a head-to-head battle. They're locked within 1 second, these two, and BMC need to get 13 seconds to get the yellow jersey.
One problem, Phil, just counting the helmets in this line of riders. 1, 2, 3, 4, only 5 riders left. They've got to be very careful. They can't put too much pressure onto the 5th man right now because they have to nurse him across the line. 61 is TJ Van Garderen. He dare not go to the front right now and finish off with all of the firepower that he's got, because he's got to make sure that he stays with that 5th man. It could, as I've said to you since the start, it's all about these final 2 kilometres. And look at the speed. We've seen speeds close to 56 kilometres an hour out on the course, and they're finishing it off at 18 miles an hour, 26 kilometres an hour. It's a complete opposite. It is so very, very difficult to finish a team time trial like this.
The survivors here being led at the moment by Rowan Dennis, followed by TJ Van Garderen. Then it's Sam Sanchez, the former Olympic champion, Damiano Caruso, and tacked on at the back here, Greg Van Avermaet. They've all got to stay together now. There's no more room for dropping riders. The time is taken on the 5th man.
Well, we talked about Sammy Sanchez there, Phil. Probably one of the most experienced riders in this group. He was in difficulty a few moments ago. He's a great climber, and he's managed to recover in the last part of this team time trial. He won the Olympic Games back in 2008 in Beijing, and at the end of last season, he actually didn't have a contract, and BMC said, no, come on, mate, you're such a fantastic rider. We'll keep you on board for another 12 months, and today, he's almost paying for that contract.
1 kilometre to go for TJ Van Garden's BMC squad. They're the World Team Time Trial champions, and TJ Van Garden was part of that winning team in Spain a year ago. But now he wants to set not just the best time, but he wants a gap of 13 seconds on Team Sky to don the maillot jaune. And that's looking a little bit difficult right now.
Well, it's all about how they digest this final few kilometres. It's a horrendous way to finish. You look at that average speed, you can hardly believe that. You could probably do that yourself if you were going down to the shops, but you wouldn't be able to do it going up this climb, the Côte de Cadoudal.
No idea why this time has become so difficult.
It's a real climb now. These riders are just using what's left in those legs. Hanging on to the backup position is Greg Van Avermaet. He must not get left. The clock stops on him.
Face that. So Rowan Dennis on the front as well, the first leader of the Tour de France, and the reason he's turning himself inside out right now, Phil, is because he wants TJ Van Garderen to be the new leader of this race. 450 metres to go. You know, on the flat, it would only take them about 30 seconds. It's going to take them close to a minute now.
Well, they're going to be the best time, and then we're going to have to wait for the arrival of the last team, Sky, to see who is the next leader of this tour. BMC have done the best here. Look at the face here of TJ Van Garderen. His mouth opening and closing like a goldfish as he races up towards the line.
Well, a great job done also by Sammy Sanchez. They're around that corner. It's horrendous here, Phil. It's so steep. It's close to 12% as they start to dig. Sammy Sanchez just trying to stay on the wheel at number 66.
Well, I tell you what, the sprint by Van Garderen here, but he's got to remember the guy behind. Rowan Dennis has been pushed to the back now, and Rowan Dennis has got to hang on. That's where the clock will stop as the BMC come up to the line. It's going to be desperately close, this, but they hit it by just a couple of seconds. They get best time.
Well, they're saying 32:15 as the Movistar riders get ready to move away, but at the end of the day, when they do the counting and the addition of time, I think they'll be fairly pleased with that performance. Now, the question is, will Team Sky be able to stop the clock in 32:28?
Into the last kilometre with 2 minutes to go the last kilometre, but we are climbing uphill now. Normally the team times are they've gone through that last kilometre in about 61 seconds.
Yes, but today it's going to take closer to 2 minutes, and let's not forget in the team time trial stage like this, there's no time bonuses available. It's all about the time that the clock actually stops it. They've got themselves around about a minute to get up to the finishing line, but the clock needs to stop inside of 32 minutes, 28 seconds for Chris Froome in that yellow jersey to remain in the yellow jersey, going through to the next phase of the Tour de France, the Pyrenean Mountains.
Well, they're all looking round to make sure that Nicholas Roach hasn't unhitched at the back, because he's suffering terribly. He's cracking. And they're going to have to wait for him because the time is on the 5th man. They were very conscious of the fact they were cracking on the climb, always looking around Chris Froome. They've got to wait for the last man.
You see somebody's just set back there to wait for him to pace him up there. It is so important. You've got to nurse your man.
The time, Paul, is 13 seconds to get to the line now. Remember, they've got to be 13 seconds slower than BMC to lose the yellow jersey. And it's going to be the maillot jaune. It might be the number 5 man here. He's coaxing them in. BMC will win the race, but it is Froome who keeps yellow.
Well, that is so very, very close. We'll have to wait for the actual official time, but just see how difficult. Look at the face of Nicholas Roach there on the left-hand side, Phil. His mouth is wide open. He knows how important it's got to be.
32 minutes, 16 seconds was the result there, and it is Chris Froome who will keep yellow, but BMC, the world champions, win the day.
Wow, as we look down there on the Chateau of Col Agnel, and we actually went down there this morning to meet the owner. 1 second is the provisional time gap difference between BMC Racing, who will win the stage, and Team Sky, but that means that Chris Froome will remain in the overall lead.
I've got some different cycling shorts on.
And what a brilliant performance by Movistar. Things then will look like this. TJ Van Garderen moving 1 second closer in second position at 12 seconds. Greg Van Avermaet of BMC now up into third at 27. Peter Sagan down into 4th place at 38. Alberto Contador up to 5th. Now look at that, great ride by Ethics Quickstep. And there's the enjoyment, there is the joy. BMC Racing getting the stage victory. They've had a great stage so far, but hats off. Alejandro Valverde on the right-hand side. Nairo Quintana just staring down into those eyes of his. Did a great performance today. Chris Froome, well, he's proved why he's the leader. He's proved why he's the man who waves the flag for Team Sky, because he steered them up that final climb of the day. But the world champions did the job. And what a great performance too, Phil, by Sammy Sanchez.
This is Matthew Keenan with you, and as dramatic as the opening week of racing has been, it's here in the mountains that the race for yellow really gets underway. Before the start, there were statues erected across the 102 editions of the Tour de France, and denoting many of the past winners, including Bernard Thévenet, who won twice, 75 and 77. Greg LeMond, who won in 1986. Bernard Hinault, a 5-time winner of the race. Stephen Roach, the winner of the Tour in 1987. LeMond, in fact, a 3-time winner of the Tour de France, 86, 89 and 90. And up in third position, Sagan 4th. Contador in 5th, Rigoberto Urán 6th. Valverde, Quintana also inside the top 10. Peter Sagan with a 3-point buffer in the race for the green jersey, ahead of Andre Greipel. King of the Mountains classification, that is Daniel Tegler-Haminons. He's on 4 points versus the 2 of Rodriguez. But this is where the climbing really starts and the battle for that jersey commences. The white jersey for the best young rider, it's with Peter Sagan. 1:21 is the advantage over Nairo Quintana. Then it's into the Pyrenees, from Tarbes to La Pierre-Saint-Martin. It's a stage of 167 kilometres. There's 3 Category 4 climbs to get things started. Then they go up the final climb, which is an Oars category climb, and it takes them to some 1,700 metres in altitude. It's a difficult climb. It's a first-time adventure here for the Tour de France. And let's not forget that it is the 14th of July, so the French will have some high ambitions. The white jersey has been worn by Nairo Quintana, the man who finished in that jersey in Paris 2 years ago, though he sits in second place. Peter Sagan has the responsibility of wearing green. Alberto Contador in the colours of Tinkoff Saxo. A difficult day for them yesterday with Ivan Basso heading home, having been diagnosed with testicular cancer. And like the rest of the cycling community, we wish the Italian all the best. Situation of the race, 2 men out in front. Sitting at the back is Peric Federico, who is the best placed of these 2 in the overall standings at 34 minutes and 31 seconds behind. And he's joined by the Belgian on debut at the Tour de France. It is Kenneth Van Bilsen, who rides at the front in red. 14 minutes and 29 seconds, or 28 seconds their advantage. This is the biggest lead we've seen for any breakaway throughout this year's Tour de France. No surprise to see a Frenchman in the break, and a former French national champion who's tasted plenty of success in this part of the country. He's won 4 stages in his career at the Tour de France, Peric Federico, and most of them in this region. Another one across the Alps in Gap, where we head to for the second rest day. Peloton today under the control of Team Sky with Chris Froome. No longer waiting for the teams of the sprinters to look after the chase of the breakaway. It is a battle for yellow this afternoon. And for Chris Froome, he has said before the stage got underway today, I'm in a good position, I'll defend it. He's got every right to. He sits on the wheel of Peter Kenyak, Richie Portes, Leo Koenig, Wout Poels. They're the men we'll be looking for to protect Chris Froome throughout today's stage. Chris Froome has declared that he considers TJ Van Garderen and Nairo Quintana as his 2 main rivals. Tony Gallopin in the red colours. Man who won a stage last year and had a 1-day stint in the yellow jersey. He's having a conversation with Brice Filou from the Breton Sachet team. Filou, also a stage winner in the Tour de France. That was way back in 2009, and his first attempt at the race. Well, the major news coming out of the rest day yesterday was the abandonment of the race of Ivan Basso, who had what would prove to be the most fortunate crash of his career. The Italian, who's been a dual winner of the Giro d'Italia, a second-place finisher here at the Tour de France, and a teammate of Alberto Contador, Basso crashed on stage 5 and said that he hurt his testicle, and it still hurt for another 2 days, so they figured they'd better get it checked out. And then he got the news yesterday, just 2 hours before the press conference for Tinkoff Saxo, that he had early stages of testicular cancer. The good news is it's been caught early, and we wish him all the best. Peter Sagan in the green jersey today, and as always having a little bit of fun. It won't be too much fun once we get closer to this final climb on today's stage, Le Pierre Saint-Martin. And Peter Sagan, there is one intermediate sprint on today's stage, and that comes before we hit the big climb, obviously, given that that takes us to the finish line. It's with 43 kilometres remaining. It's after they go over the first 2 Category 4 climbs of today's stage. And I suspect that we'll see Peter Sagan in amongst the action. They've been over the first climb of today's stage, the Côte de Bourget. It's a Category 4 climb. And Van Bilsen, in a leading group of 2, led them across the top of the climb. Here he is, the 25-year-old Belgian. And when Daniel Tecla-Harmonot took the King of the Mountains jersey, it was in a breakaway with Van Bilsen, and those two were sprinting to the top of each of the climbs to try and collect the points. Number 204, the experienced Frenchman. This is Perique Federico. He's won 4 stages in his career at the Tour de France, and one of them, back in 2009, was in Tarbes, where the stage started today. He's also won 2 stages into Pau, where the rest day was yesterday. His first stage victory, well, that came in 2006 into Gap, where we head to in the 3rd week of racing. And when you've won as often as Perique Federico, it's no surprise that you're going back to a territory where you have had success in the past. 21 victories throughout his career for a man who turned professional with the Credit Agricole team back in 2001. So he's had a long and distinguished career. Ever reliable Perique Federico. And for the Cofidis team, another opportunity for them to get a little bit of exposure. It's been a disappointing race for what has been a big investment financially. And it comes down to the crashes, the bad luck for Nasser Bouhanni. Unfortunately, had to abandon the race after a few nasty falls. Into the town of Bourget. And this church that we can see, it's in the centre of town, that was built in the 17th century. And that little tower that you can see was the beginnings of the town, which was established in around about 1380. Sure what the size of the population is, but I can assume it's fairly small. The Tower of Bourget was the first building of note within this town, as I mentioned just a moment ago, back in 1380. Back to the peloton with 2 riders from Movistar on the front, supporting Team Sky. And we move into the territory of Nairo Quintana. He's a minute and 59 seconds down in the overall standings. The Colombian sitting in 9th position overall. Minute 59 seconds, it's a lot of time to make up, but he is capable of doing it. If anybody in this race is, it is Nairo Quintana. When he made his debut in the Tour de France, he headed into the final week a fair way off the pace, and he clawed back some significant time on Chris Froome. He was the only one really to challenge in the mountains. The rider on the right-hand side of the screen with the British flag around his sleeves, that's Ian Stannard. They'll be using Stannard earlier on. But the next one in line with the very skinny arms is Wout Poels, a Dutchman, a new recruit across to this team. And he's one of the riders on Team Sky who's pretty happy with the confirmation that Richie Porte will be leaving the team at the end of the season. And it's nothing to do with his view of Richie Porte or having a negative or positive relationship with Richie Porte. He's pretty keen, Wout Poels, to put his hand up to be the man that leads Team Sky at the Giro d'Italia next year. Across the top of the climb, the first Category 4 climb on today's stage. 14 minutes and 34 seconds is the gap. I'm not sure that Wout Poels will automatically be the team leader for Sky at the Giro next year, because that's a team that's also got Leo Koenig on the squad, who rode the Giro this year for the first time and finished in 6th position. Not just for the stage victory because it's the Tour de France, but the stage victory because it's the Tour de France and it's right on the Spanish border. And there are lots of Spanish spectators here and plenty of Basques as well. You see quite a few of the spectators on the side of the road today wearing the orange jersey of the now defunct Euskadal Euskadi. But it's like the national jersey of the Basque country. Van Bilsen in the red colours. Federico is the rider in the black and green. Stage started in Tarbes today, and it was there that Prix Federico was the stage winner in 2009. There's nothing flashy about Prix Federico, very workmanlike, just gets the job done. It was on stage 8 to the Mur de Bretagne where we saw the race start to split up after the intermediate sprint, where it was Prix Federico who was one of the first ones there looking for the opportunity to drive home the advantage. It would be a great result, and one that the French would really cheer about if that squad, the smallest team in the race, were able to pick up a stage victory. Still Avanti sitting on the front. We haven't seen BMC Racing need to do too much of this throughout the tour so far. Their team leader TJ Van Garderen, he has said that his strength is his consistency, and he will not be out there trying to attack the likes of Quintana or Contador on the climbs, but just presents itself then to take any big risk from Van Garderen. TJ was part of BMC back in 2011 when Cadel Evans won the race, and he said the way they've ridden so far is very much following the template that was set by Evans 4 years ago. They've been up the front, out of trouble, calculated efforts, no energy wasted. And Rowan Dennis, the Australian on that squad, has played an enormous role. Speaking with Bob Roll from American television over lunch before beginning the broadcast, he was very impressed with Rowan Dennis, and he was of the view that it was Dennis who was the difference between BMC finishing first or second, in fact first or third. And Bob Roll calculated that Rowan Dennis, across the last 6 kilometres of that team time trial, probably spent about 5 of it on the front with his nose in the wind. Chase is on now. The peloton is strung out in single file. Then at 13 minutes and 53 seconds, the advantage now for our 2 leaders, Van Bilsen and Federico. Well, one man who'll be pretty happy with seeing Van Bilsen off the front is Sean Kelly, as Van Bilsen spent a season with Sean Kelly's development team back in 2012. He then spent a couple of years with Topsport Vlaanderen, which is the Belgian equivalent of an Australian Institute of Sport or the British Cycling Academy. It supports young riders just making the transition into the professional ranks. And at this year, at the age of 25, Van Bilsen has shifted across to the French team Cofidis. He now has made his debut in the Tour de France, and we've seen a bit of him. Start chasing, Team Sky waiting. Richie Porte sitting behind Leo Koenig. Leo Koenig having some lunch. He will be crucial to the prospects of Chris Froome throughout this year's race. And Leo Koenig is a potential Grand Tour winner himself in the future. This is his 4th participation in a Grand Tour. The 3 that he's ridden so far and finished: Tour of Spain, 9th in 2013. Tour de France last year, 7th. Giro d'Italia, Tour of Italy this year, 6th. They're good numbers for Koenig. Number 35, Richie Port. Where will he be next season? He's declared that he is leaving Team Sky. He's staying loyal to Chris Froome. He wants to support his friend win his 2nd Tour de France. And he also wants to be a leader in his own right. Many have noted how relaxed Chris Froome looks at this year's tour. Even Froome has noted himself that he feels a lot more relaxed, certainly, than he was at the start of last year's tour. And even in 2013, he came into the tour having won pretty much every race he started throughout the start of the season. And he did feel the pressure because he was trying to fill the shoes of Bradley Wiggins, who had won the tour the year before for the Sky squad. This year, there hasn't been that much of a focus on Froome. There's been a lot more attention to Quintana and Contador and Nibali as the defending champion. And many had discounted the prospects of Froome because of how difficult the first week was. Crosswinds, Pave, the rain that played a part as well. Froome handled them perfectly. No room to hide today, though. Those crosswinds, the team played a crucial role for Froome, as it did for Van Garderen, likewise Alberto Contador. And as the American TJ Van Garderen has said himself, up until now, sure, we have been able to hide and use the team. In the mountains, we can't hide. It's us, the gradients, gravity, and our rivals. You will like those numbers, and now with the peloton going through the feed zone, the gap for the leading two, it might shift back out to almost that 14-minute mark. Rider with the tattoos coming up towards the front, that is winner Anacona. One of 2 Colombians on the team. He was brought across to the squad to support the #1 man at Nairo Quintana. Anacona, his name Winner is the result of a spelling mistake on his birth certificate. It was meant to be Winning, named after Peter Winning, the Dutchman who won twice to the top of Alpe d'Huez back in the late 70s, the early 80s. Anacona's father was a keen cycling fan. His middle name is Andrew, after Andrew Hampston, or Andy Hampston, who won to the top of Alpe d'Huez back in 1992. Winner himself last year, riding with the Lamprey team. He was a winner indeed at the Tour of Spain. He won a mountaintop finish there, his first stage victory in a Grand Tour. And here he's just interested in supporting at Nairo Quintana. Back to the breakaway group of 2. Van Bilsen in the red colours. It is Frederigo sitting at the back in the green and black. He's very stocky, Peric Frederigo. He doesn't carry any excess weight, he's just naturally very muscular. And he's not a man for the high mountains, but his stage victories generally come on stages where they're going through the medium mountains. He's won twice in Pau, he's won in Gap, and he's won in Tarbes. Chris Froome in the yellow jersey, he has all the elements to show he's the big boss of the tour. Today is a climb to clean out his adversaries.
I don't think we're going to see, big moves from the favourites. It could be one where someone can get away, but one thing is for sure, the pace is going to be very high, and all those who've lost time, Nairo, Contador, Nibali above all, have got a point to